5,000 years ago, there was a great battle between the world of immortals and the world of demons. All the clans of the immortal world were wiped out. The cultivator species was on the verge of extinction. But soon the world changed drastically. A guy named Manhwa from the Dupan clan said that this time, this test is so simple, and there should be many more willing to participate, and you have to prepare for the fact that at any moment, the family's name will be tarnished. But Manhwa replied that the devil core is the greatest treasure of demonic entities of great value. And the spiritual order of the Holy Cross marked 3 nuclei in the bodies of 3 entities of the 3rd rank. Namnik said that for the Onassis clan, it's a no-brainer. The enchantress backed up and replied that he was right, and they should all be more careful. This forest is different from the others, and she's got a bad feeling about it. As time went on, more and more people with supernatural powers began to appear. This world became a world of magic and sorcery, in which beings with the power of thought took a special leading place. And he's been in a deep sleep for 5,000 years, and woke up to find that he was alone, the last cultivator in this world, and a little loose and unbridled, the last cultivator. The guy asked a passerby what he was staring at, or had he never seen ear cleaning in his life. But the passerby didn't answer anything, and he thought it was an abomination. But the guy had a mission, and he needed to kill the demons of the Ghost Valley, and not miss a single one. He was one of those who love money more than life. The guy asked who would ever watch his money run away from him in peace. He happened to meet a group of not-so-reliable people. The girl told him that he should not act so rashly, and there's this horrifying aura that makes her body stiffen and make it hard to breathe. The guy realized it was because she was pressing too hard against him with her charms. The guy was a tricky one, and his amulet under the dragon symbol started to say he finally got out. Dragon asked the guy how he felt about being forced to face him in his prime again. In this life, countless centuries-old magical artifacts, forbidden writings, everything belongs to him. Guy arrived at a nice place and shouted at the top of his voice to welcome his favorite home. He had absolute strength with which he could crush everyone. He used the blessing of the 5 lightning bolts at once, and even switched to a thunderous execution. Stopping the sword with his bare fingers, he told the girl to step aside. And because what he would do might hurt her, Heretic said that it turns out there are still people who can go that deep into the Ghost Valley. And it's really amazing. Those whiny little pissants don't even dare to approach him. Heretic said it was spiritual power, and the trace of the battle with the cultivator. The guy replied to her that it was correct, and immediately started fighting monsters. A cultivator who has set himself the noble task of revitalizing his own kind. And on this solitary road on the way to immortality, he boldly moves forward. The guy said those who oppose him perish, and those who are with him prosper. He has the responsibility of reviving the glorious name of the cultivators. Not far from the city of Philo in the Forest of the Lost was one boy. He was frightened to see the monsters, and he wondered how they got here. But the monsters were ruthless about humans and killed, and even chopped into small pieces every time. One of the monsters took over and approached the boy, raising his sword and chopping his head off. A scream could be heard from the outskirts of the forest. But a group of people also came to the Forest of the Lost. One of the guys said that the local small town had posted a quest, and they say that low-level goblins won in this part of the forest and are attacking the locals. But an ally tells him not to be afraid, because Lady Katerina is with them. And with her, this quest is easy money. Katerina replied that he was not here to make money. Her father won't let her practice in church, so this is the only way for her to practice. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise. The boy asked, "What was that sound?" But Katerina immediately felt that someone was coming this way and even attacking. Turning around, they saw the guy. The guy was surprised and asked, wondering if someone had already gone deeper into the forest than him. The warrior asked if he was a civilian and asked him what he was doing here. "There are monsters everywhere. It's very dangerous." The guy showed the picture and replied that it was just what he needed. He took an order from the local settlement. "He's here to kill that monster." The warriors began to whisper and told his friend that his suit was strange and he was wearing no armor and looks like a normal person but wants to fight monsters. His friend answered him to stop, for he was about to measure his mental strength. The guy asked the warrior why he was shoving it in his face. The warrior answered him to relax, and it's just a meter. and to measure his strength. After looking at the technology, warrior said he had 0%. Ordinary people have 5%. And they asked him how he was going to fight monsters. Even though the local monsters are weak, he's afraid he won't last a minute. The guy asked him what mental power. He's never used it, but he's killed monsters regularly. The warriors couldn't help themselves and started laughing at him, saying that this guy is a great joke. He doesn't even know what mental power is and has killed monsters yet. He looks like a walking joke. Katarina told him that mental power was an ability that allowed him to fight monsters. For thousands of years, humans have been awakening mental power so that they can stand up to monsters. And those who can control it are capable of surpassing human capabilities. And depending on the amount of strength, people are categorized into S, A, B, C, D, and E ranks. The warrior said the same thing. She is correct. And Ms. Katarina Steve was able to rise to the D rank at a young age. She can handle the local monsters with ease and let him come home while he still can. But then the guy answered them that he was refusing. The warrior suddenly froze with surprise and thought, when did this guy manage to outrun him? And he should probably get his eyesight checked. The warrior suddenly called him a contagion and asked why he didn't listen to them. Didn't he understand? But Katarina was tired and told them to stop. She came here without the church's permission, and the monsters here are weak. It's okay if a person with 0 mental power walks around here. He might be useful when they are collecting loot from the monsters. They started fighting the monsters and easily cut them into pieces. Katarina at this time appealed to the spirit of the water and asked them to answer her call. And in the name of the holy water, they need to fight evil and show their strength. She applied the secret magic of the Steve family and formed a great whirlpool. The monsters failed. The warriors told the mistress not to dig through the goblin remains and let her leave the dirty work to them, and she must not get dirty. The guy turned around and looked at them and realized that these two were directly worshipping her. He said that they were rank 1 monsters. No need to relax. He told them to take a good look, for they already had enemies ahead of them. They went through the forest and came to an abandoned building. The warriors saw it and said it was a strange place, and the quest didn't say anything about ruins. But the guy told them to be careful. The atmosphere here is heavy. But the second warrior said they were here, and so there was nothing to worry about. Katarina also said he was right, and this place is different from the forest, and she has a bad feeling about it. One of the strongest monsters was inside the building and smelled someone else's scent. Katarina hadn't felt anything the whole time, but in a moment she stopped abruptly and saw a huge goblin. She asked the guys, "What is it?" The warrior was also surprised and said that it was very huge and asked, "Is it also a rank 1 monster?" Katarina replied that she wasn't sure. Even though he didn't move, her intuition told her that something was wrong. She suddenly saw one of the warriors moving forward and asked him what he was going to do. "You don't have to go near him." The warrior approached it, and suddenly it seemed very familiar to him. He had definitely seen something like it somewhere. The warrior walked up to the monster and started poking it with his fingers. He saw that it had no reaction. The warrior turned immediately to Miss Catherine and said that it appeared to be just a corpse, and this time everything would go smoothly. But it was much worse than that. The monster suddenly opened his eyes. The boy shouted at him to be careful, for the danger was behind him. The warrior had no sooner turned around than he immediately felt very hot, and his hand fell to the ground. The warrior was startled and realized that this monster was actually alive. It turned out to be a rank 3 monster and the leader of the goblins. The goblin leader opened his mouth and began to growl at the top of his voice. Both warriors immediately froze and fell to the ground. Katarina immediately ran up to them and asked if they were okay. The guy replied that they were obviously shaken up. Katarina told him not to take any action. She realized that this monster was quite powerful, and this fact could not be neglected. She must use her strongest spell and put all her strength into this strike. Katarina turned again to the spirits of water and called them to her call. And in the name of the holy water, let them release the divine power and cast out the uncleanness, and told the goblin to realize that these were secret enchantments of the highest order of the ancient grimoires, and applied the mad shark at once. But the goblin chieftain was stronger. He simply placed his hand and repelled her attack in a 1-2 punch. Katarina was surprised that there was no effect, But how could this be possible? After all, this monster was at least a rank 3 monster. But what should she do now? The goblin didn't stand still and immediately rushed to attack her. But Katerina used the water barrier. The goblin didn't stop and struck several blows at once. Katerina suddenly fell down and thought she had time to cast a protective spell. But even so, she was badly damaged. She realized to herself that she couldn't defeat him. But there was information in the assignment that only rank 1 monsters should be here. How did it turn out like this? Only rank C mentalists could compete with rank 3 monsters. It was hardly a group of 5-6 rank D mentalists. Those 2 E rank knights are already lying unconscious. And she's pretty badly injured. Is she really going to die here? And only that poor guy is obviously the most ordinary person without any abilities, and now they have to die here together because of her selfishness. The goblin decided to make one last attack. Katerina was already being closed eyes and saying goodbye to her life. But after a few minutes, she opened her eyes and was surprised that she was alive. Suddenly, she saw that that poor man had just stopped the attack with 2 fingers. The goblin leader himself was greatly surprised, even trembling a little. Katerina looked at this picture and thought, how is this possible? He was able to block the attack using only 2 fingers. But it's a rank 3 monster after all. The guy asked her if she could move. Katerina replied that she was fine. The guy told her to step aside then. Otherwise, she might get caught too. Katerina said she had no problem stepping back. Hiding behind the door, she asked him how. Is it far enough? The guy said it was far enough. The boy turned to the monster and called it a thunderbolt. He asked the goblin, had he ever been struck by lightning? But he received no reply and immediately released a lightning bolt through his sword. Suddenly, the clouds gathered in one place, and the guy gave the order for a thunderbolt. The lightning gathered in one place, and a large stream headed for the body of the goblin leader. The goblin didn't have time to dodge and only screamed in pain. Katerina was surprised and thought that this guy could actually cause thunder and lightning. It's incomprehensible. And is he just hiding the fact that he is a thunder and lightning wizard? The guy told her he was done and she could come out. Katerina came out and was dumbfounded. She looked at the monster and verified that it was indeed dead. A single rolling sound was enough to instantly kill a rank 3 monster. And to her, this mania is now truly amazing. It had been a long time since their city of Furno had seen such talented mages. She even remembered that her father had once told her that strong people could sometimes deliberately hide their strength, making it appear to others that they were practically at 0. And then, at the point where they need to reveal all the cards, they maximize her concentration, all to do as much damage as possible in a short period of time. Is he really one of those people? The knight had said that it was a rank 3 monster. Was it really killed by that guy, he asked? But he didn't have an ounce of mental power after all. Katerina walked over to them and told them not to be so skeptical. If he hadn't come to their rescue in time yesterday, none of them would be alive anymore. He's actually their savior. She doesn't know what he's doing now, but she's sure he's incredibly powerful. The knights come up to him and tell him that they recognize that they allowed themselves a little too much last night. They ask him not to hold a grudge, and this time they have quite a lot of valuable loot and also what this monster had with it. How is their benefactor going to do all this? The guy said it was all his. The knights were surprised and asked what he wanted it all for. What about them? They worked hard yesterday too, didn't they? They deserve at least a little. The guy didn't talk to them for long and tossed them both a toenail from a first-rank goblin's toe. The knights asked, a goblin's fingernail? Is that all their loot? But one of them said it was too little. He even lost his arm in yesterday's fight. Let the benefactor give them more materials. The guy answered them to know the measure. He had already healed his wounds. What he treated his wound with was his best medicine. He didn't even charge him for it. After a long meditation practice, this mysterious man dealt with yesterday's prey with more. The guy packed himself a huge bag and said that everything was divided according to conscience, and if no one minded. Katerina asked him if he was leaving already. The guy replied that he still had to go to the village to get the reward. After he left, Knight said he took everything he could get a bad bounty for. This guy is too stingy. But the second Knight told him to be quiet. There was something very valuable he hadn't taken with him, and said that last night the thought had crossed his mind that this monster looked familiar Turns out it was a goblin for which the Witches Association was offering a good reward. But Guy was using his hearing at this time and heard everything. The knight at the time said they just needed to get his corpse to the Furno, and that they could trade him for big bucks. The guy asked him right away, "What did they just say? Can you get a lot of money for it?" Arriving in Furno and going to the Witches Association representative office, salesman said that the corpse of the goblin chief of the third rank is worth 10,000 spiritual baht. Royal two-handed goblin sword, 150 spiritual baht. All other materials worth 150 spiritual baht. That's a total of 1,300 baht, and thought it wasn't bad. The spirit bats here were absolutely identical to the spirit stones he had used before. Even though they were of a low order, there were quite a few of them. They would greatly help him in the cultivation process. He looked at the knights, and when he saw their faces, he said, "Here are 30 spiritual baht. Now let them go home and lick their wounds." The knights rejoiced and started to thank him. But the boy turned around and said that now they were even and said goodbye. Katerina did not want to let him go and told him not to leave. She took his hand and asked to know his name. If he didn't mind, of course. The guy turned around and replied that his name was Zhong Tianshan. After such a hard day, he went to an inn in Furno. Tian decided to bathe, and taking the medallion in his hand said that this thing was hanging around the neck of the goblin chief. But even after being struck by lightning, it remained unharmed. It emanates the faint spiritual energy of the immortal world. It must be quite valuable, and as long as he keeps it, Tian hung this locket around his neck and closed his eyes. At that time, it suddenly started to glow. The medallion immediately activated, and a girl suddenly appeared out of the water. She said that 5,000 years had passed, and she was finally here again. She turned out to be the nine-tailed fox werewolf by Qing. She looked at the guy and asked, but Tian didn't pay any attention to her while he was recovering his strength. The fox walked over and said that an incredible amount of spiritual energy was emanating from him. And who would have thought that she would be so lucky? And in that case, she would try it. She didn't waste her time and immediately kissed him on the lips and felt an incredible feeling. And it was amazing. And it was so soft and juicy. She can feel her body being filled with spiritual energy. And it felt so good. Tian opened his eyes and asked her who she was. The fox was frightened and stepped aside and said that he was awake. And she said he was the one who made her wake up. Does he not remember anything at all? Tian asked if she was the fox engraved on the pendant. The fox was surprised and thought that she had been so busy thinking about the need to replenish her spiritual powers that she hadn't even noticed how handsome this man was. And even physically, he is so perfectly built. We should check him out first. She suddenly let out a strange liquid from her mouth at once. Tian said she was a little fox and asked her what she had in mind. But his imagination became very strange. The fox asked why the gentleman is taking a bath all alone. Doesn't the gentleman feel cold and lonely? Maybe he will let them dispel his boredom. They have unique techniques that will allow them to relax and enjoy themselves. The fox hugged his arm and started to say that the gentleman has such strong muscles. She felt like her heart was about to jump out of her chest. She asked if the master could feel it. The second fox also started saying that his body was getting hotter and hotter. No need to get so excited. And maybe let her use her body and massage his back. That will definitely let him relax. Fox realized that if this man couldn't resist her art of seduction either, she didn't know who else in the world could help him. Perhaps she'd better go back to sleep. But Tian paid no attention to them and only looked at the main fox. She was greatly surprised and thought that he was not affected by her charms. So the guy asked her if she had played around. Tian just rose to his feet, and Lissa looked at him with red eyes and thought, what was that dazzling glow? Tian also said that for some reason he felt like he wasn't constrained by anything. But Lissa looked at him and couldn't remove her gaze. After that, Tian got dressed and said that if he wasn't mistaken, she must be the spirit of the artifact. The spirit of this pendant is a fox werewolf, and her specialty is messing with people's minds. The fox replied that now that he had seen everything with his own eyes, there was no point in hiding it. She is an ancient essence ornament of the northern nine-tailed fox, and after thousands of years of continuous practice, she finally managed to take on a human form. But because of the concentrated demonic energy, she had to fall into a slumber. She even thought she would sleep forever. But who would have thought she would meet him like this? It was his spiritual energy that awakened her. As for her charms, she just wanted to try it out. She could feel that there was an incredible amount of spiritual energy concentrated in his body. Is he a cultivator, she asked. Tian replied that yes. The fox said that, however, as far as she knew, there shouldn't have been a single cultivator left in this world. 5,000 years ago, there was a great battle between the world of immortals and the world of demons, at the end of which all the cultivator clans were wiped out. Not a single cultivator was left. And because of the influence of the demonic aura, the world had changed drastically. The major sects, formerly respected and honored by all, turned into ruins. In the whirlwind of events over time, the history of the cultivators was forgotten. Many other races emerged and developed, and many other unknown races living on the same continent with them. And in all these years while she slept, she had also not sensed the presence of cultivators. The fox asked him how he had managed to survive and now, after thousands of years, to reappear here. Tien replied that he did not know. He doesn't remember very well what happened back then. Lisa asked him, is he having memory lapses? But he shouldn't worry. His memory should come back to him as time passes. Tian said he hoped so. That technique she had just tried to use on him, did she do that in order to assess his spiritual powers? And as an artifact spirit, without the help of a cultivator, she can't develop her abilities on her own, right? The guy asked. The fox replied that yes, but that wasn't the only problem. In this world full of demonic energy, without spiritual nourishment, she wouldn't last long. She feels his powerful spiritual energy. Can she follow him? Tian asked with surprise. The fox replied that she had an excellent sense of smell. Even in a world with such a concentration of demonic energy, she could sense ancient artifacts. She could be useful to him. Tian said then they agreed. The fox asked him, did he agree so easily? Doesn't he need to reflect a little? She would improve herself by absorbing his spiritual energy. Doesn't he want to ask her for anything in return? For example, she might offer him her body in exchange for his spiritual energy, or something like that. Tian replied that there was no need for that. It wouldn't cost him anything for him to share the amount of spiritual energy she required. The fox at this moment felt that he was telling the truth. Tian said that, and what's more, she had promised to help him search for ancient artifacts after all. In the morning, Fox asked the guy, Zhong Tianshan, is that his name? Tianshan replied that yes. What is it? The fox replied that it sounded very familiar. Where on earth could she have heard it? Suddenly she remembered that she had even changed the appearance of her face. Tian asked her, what is it? The fox replied that there. She senses a very powerful artifact in that direction. Tian took a look and said that it was just beautiful. And now it was time for them to go and check it out. Arriving at one of the squares, Inferno Fox said there are so many people here, and there seems to be some kind of celebration here, and she can feel the aura of the artifact emanating from there. Tian said going forward, it's time for them to join the celebration. Walking through the crowd, Tian realized that the artifact the vixen was talking about was this blade. People from the crowd began to say that, in accordance with ancient custom, there would be a trial of the brave in a few days. They don't even know this time which heir to which of the four great families will be able to pass the test. But one of the old ones asked, even if someone passed it, what would happen? How many years have they lived in the world, and they have never seen anyone who could pull out that sword? The fox asked her grandfather what was so special about him. The old man replied that, judging from her question, he could conclude that she was not from around here. There isn't a man in Inferno who doesn't know what this sword is. The blade of the brave is a sacred blade preserved from ancient times, a blade with centuries of history. It has always been embedded in this boulder. Only the worthy can retrieve it. Over thousands of years, many attempts have been made to pull the sword out in many different ways, but no one has ever succeeded. And perhaps this worthy brave from the legends would never appear. The fox asked Tian, what's wrong with him? Did he get carried away by the spectacle? Tian replied that this blade, he had seen it before. 5,000 years ago, one of the heads said that this blade was a treasure from the valley of the master blacksmiths. It feels no heavier than a feather in the hand, but it will strike the enemy with its sharpness. And this is the greatest blade of all. And if they could achieve enlightenment, this blade could turn into the spirit guardian of the Qing Luan blade. And in the whole world, he is the only one worthy of wielding it. Tian said it was his sword. Who would have thought that after that great battle, the fox asked the guy, "Is he serious?" Tion replied that yes, he even remembered its name. Tion suddenly decided to try to take it off, but suddenly swords were placed in front of him and did not act. The guard immediately asked, "Who dares to break the rules? This is the sacred sword of Furno City. No civilian is allowed to approach it." The fox told them that they had told themselves, after all, that there must be a brave man who could get him out. The guard started laughing and said that no one had been able to do that for thousands of years. And what made her think he could? The second guard also said that there must be something wrong with their heads. Anyone could never pull out that sword. A woman in the crowd said that if he wanted to try, he must first pass the test of the brave, which required the recommendation of 4 great families. The guard tells the boys that he asked them to name which family they are from. If they are not a member of one of the 4 great families, he has no right to admit them, and asks them to forgive him. Tion replied that even if he was not a member of one of the 4 great families, the guards answered him that in that case, they would have to make him leave. But suddenly Katerina came and told them to stop. This man is an honored guest of the Steve family. How dare they treat him like that? The guards were frightened and replied that they were apologizing. They didn't know he was their guest. People started screaming that it was Ms. Steve. How could this uncouth bumpkin meet Ms. Steve's family? Katerina asked him, "Does he want to try to get that sword?" Tien said yes. Katerina said that according to the rules, only those who passed the brave man test can try to get it. It had been like this for years, and it was beyond her power to change anything. Tion said it's just stupid rules. The fox told the Lord that they really have nowhere to rush. That sword is his. No one else can take it out. And what's more, this challenge could be interesting. Who knows? They might be lucky enough to find more treasure. You don't go into a foreign monastery with your own rules. Katerina said that as a member of one of the 4 great families, she could sign a recommendation for him. How much should he pay? Katerina was surprised and replied that it was free. Tien said to sign to her then too. She's with him. Katerina gave him the answer that she would definitely sign for both of them. But she saw that this girl was very beautiful, and her clothes were very similar in style to Tien's. What kind of relationship are they in? A few days later in the outskirts of Furno in Ghost Valley, Tien said that he could feel concentrated demonic energy everywhere. Very interesting, and it's a great place to test the brave. Suddenly Katerina came out and told them that it looked like all the contestants had arrived. Then let her announce the rules of the brave contest, and each of them must go deep into the Valley of Ghosts and retrieve 3 devil's kernels that have been prepared in advance by the spiritual order. Mel also said that the devil core was the greatest treasure of demonic entities, having great value. And the spiritual order of the Holy Cross has placed 3 cores in the bodies of 3 third-ranked entities. And whoever returns tomorrow before noon with the devil's core will be the winner. The participants were surprised and asked, "Rank 3 monsters? It's too dangerous. You could lose your life." But suddenly Carl came in and said he thought the assignment would be difficult. And for the Onassis clan, it's a no-brainer. But the guy from the Dupan Mai clan's mental strength told him not to get cocky before his time. If this trial was really so simple, there would be many more people willing to participate. Let him prepare to tarnish his family's name if he is defeated. The participants said that Carl and Mai were the most promising candidates this time around. And what's more, they are irreconcilable enemies. It's going to be an interesting show. The 2 of them can be called geniuses. But who is the stronger of the 2? The Dupan family is in a commanding position in Furno, so Mai must be stronger. But someone in the crowd said that he felt like he could not only pass this test, but also pull out a sword. He heard that he was recognized as the strongest rookie, and he's a long way off. But Carl was angry and felt that this bastard was his clan rival. And he relaxed too soon, and getting the devil's core was just the beginning. And only the one who returns here alive can be called the true winner. Tion was standing nearby at this time and felt Carl's aura was heavy. And this guy, it looked like he was the one Catherine had told him about. Katerina had told him that the Onassis family disliked them, especially Carl. He's incredibly cruel. So after being in the Valley of Ghosts, it's best to stay out of his sight. He is very dangerous. Tion replied that he understood everything. Carl also saw that the Steve family really had some mental problems, sending this guy for a trial. The most ordinary person without mental strength. He had already checked. He could even be disregarded, and this time Furno would only talk about him. Mel shouted at the top of her voice that the trial was starting. Carl immediately ran first and suddenly stopped, saying that it turns out there is also a fork in the road. And it's very interesting. He felt thorns and thorns everywhere on the left. Concentrated demonic energy was oozing from the second entrance and resembled the energy coming from high-rank monsters. And the two on the right seemed like pretty good options, especially the one with the faint light coming from the depths. He was also thinking at this time that if he analyzed everything carefully, he could feel faint wind currents coming through the third entrance, which means there must definitely be an exit there. There can be no mistake. One participant said that the first entrance is all thorns, so it would be a bit hard to go that way. It would also be hard for monsters to use such an exit, and that's why they should choose it for safety reasons. Mel asked Catherine how she could give a recommendation to someone who had no mental power. She was even very curious. For an ordinary person to enter this valley is like signing a death sentence. Isn't she afraid that her family's reputation will suffer for it? Katerina replied that it wasn't like that. She didn't do it for the family. She just wanted to fulfill his wish. But Tian is no ordinary man at all. He has incredible strength. He can pass this test. She believes it because he is the most trustworthy person she has ever met. Mel wondered and wondered in what sense the most reliable. Fox deadpanned, saying that Catherine had said the valley was divided into several areas. But there are so many forks here. Which road should they take? Tian replied, so she should let him think about it. Tian decided to go the other way and said that whichever direction this branch falls, that is the direction it will go. And that's the safe way. The fox asked him, was he serious? Is that all he could come up with? Tian threw out a stick and said, great. They need to go over there. The fox replied to her that it looked creepy. Walking inside, Fox got scared and asked him if he could hear anything. Tian replied that he didn't. But the fox hugged his arm and said that her sixth sense told her that something very scary lived here. And there's this awful aura that makes her body stiff and hard to breathe. Tian realized that it was because she was pressing too hard against him with her charms. Suddenly, they heard strange sounds from the forest. But suddenly, a human form appeared in front of them, and Lisa told Tian to look. But the human form still hadn't disappeared. Tian was not afraid and went to her. But Lisa told him to wait and asked him what he wanted to do. This is the Ghost Valley after all. She is definitely a ghost. Tian didn't believe it and replied that it was nonsense. He approached her and said that it was just a lost girl. He decided to touch her and turn her toward him. But the moment he touched her, the girl turned around and showed her face. Tian wasn't even scared of her and immediately punched her in the face with his fist and told her to die. Tian said that it was indeed a ghost. Fox said that it looks like the monsters on this path are ghosts, and why they chose the scariest one possible. Tian suddenly asked, isn't this ghost beautiful? And asked her if she could help him take off her clothes. The fox was surprised and asked why. The fox suddenly walked over and realized that actually, if you looked closely, she was not badly built. Her curves were just beautiful. But Tian doesn't want to take off her clothes while her body is still warm. The guy said that's it. The fox was surprised and asked. Tian said that this dress was made of silk, even though it was a little worn, but if the fabric was of good quality, it could be sold for a good price. He managed to find many more interesting things. The fox was surprised and couldn't believe such a thing. Tian said it was time to go, and he hoped they would meet more ghosts in the future. After a few hours, they heard strange sounds again, and Tian said that the target had been located. Tian approached her again, and turning her around, he used his face and began to wriggle in front of her. But the girl couldn't help herself and fell to the ground, kneeling down. Tian looked at her and saw that she was beautiful too. Soon, that evening became a nightmare for the ghosts of this valley. Wherever Tian and Lisa went, they all met ghosts and remained naked. A team of warriors asked en route, why does this place have such an eerie name? But he was told that this place is very scary. People have disappeared here, and no one knows what happened to them after that. And by the time they were found, they were no longer human. They turn into flesh-eating creatures, but they only come out at night. And what else can you call them if not ghosts? And at that moment, everything changed at once, for a hand emerged from the ground. The ghost appeared and stepped in front of them. But he turned out to be more than one, and brought many ghosts with him. The knight wondered if these creatures were hiding underground to avoid the thorns. He had miscalculated. The second warrior said they were missing people There were too many of them. They couldn't defeat them. The ghosts did not give their hope and immediately attacked them, and left behind a great deal of blood. Along the way, Lissa thought the way the Lord was a bit greedy and spontaneous in his actions, but she felt safe around him. And even in this frightening forest, she is not so scared anymore. But at that moment, a girl who was very strange appeared in front of them. The ghost said that it turns out there are still people who can go that deep into the Ghost Valley. And it's really amazing. Those whiny little demonesses don't even dare to approach him, but the two of them look so skinny, and she feels like she'll stay hungry even after eating them. Tion threw away the bag and said that whether she would stay hungry or not, he doesn't know that, of course. But her clothes, she definitely won't be able to keep. Tion answered her gruffly, "Something, and it means something. What doesn't make sense to her?" The ghost got angry and started saying that some human, how dare he talk to her like that? He was asking for some serious trouble. She used a bat attack and ordered them to rip them apart. Does she think that a few bats are really capable of this? She's definitely underestimating humans. But Fox suddenly decided to show his strength and used blue flames against her attack, and tore them all to pieces. The ghost said she was a sorceress. She burned all her scarlet babies in the blink of an eye. And it seems she doesn't have some powers. The fox said that even though she had slept for so many years, she still remembered how to use that light. Tian said that was cool. The fox replied that it was child's play. That's all it was. The guy asked her if she wanted him to give it to her. The fox replied that no, he could handle it better. She will help with the bats. Ghost wondered and thought, what is wrong with these two? How dare they ignore her? She is the most insidious monster here. Tian didn't waste any time and pounced on her and said that since the vixen didn't want to deal with her, he wouldn't be ceremonious. The ghost immediately realized that this guy was not simple and was very fast. But Tian just cupped her chest with his hand. The ghost eased up and stepped aside. She asked him what was wrong with him. Is he a pervert? Why is he groping her? Tian answered her so that she wouldn't misunderstand him. He doesn't need her breasts. It's just that her dress can be sold at a great price. And so, before he gets busy with her, he needs to pick it up while it's still in one piece. Tian didn't play around with it and immediately used a martial arts technique. The fox looked at all this and was amazed at his speed. She doesn't even have time to blink. The ghost received a dozen attacks and asked him to stop. But Tian was more persistent and took off her clothes. Suddenly, there was a bright kernel in the air, and she was covered in green color and looked like a mouse. The fox said it was the devil's core, the presence of which was the main condition for passing the test. It was in that ghost woman's body. Tian was also happy because he had killed 2 birds with 1 stone. The fox told him that now that he had gotten the core, he would be able to pull out the sword and come back the same way again. Tian replied that there was no need to be in such a hurry, and there were far more monsters to be found here. He wouldn't miss a single one. On the other side of the Ghost Valley, a fierce battle was unfolding. Yi at this time defeated a huge monster that was a bear. Here comes the devil core of a rank 3 monster. And it was even too easy. Carl appeared and said that he didn't expect that he would defeat a rank 3 monster and even get a demon core. And he was just lucky this time. He asked the guy, is he following him? Is he trying to kill him and take the treasure? Carl asked that there was no need for that and showed his rock. He was surprised and said that he got the core too. In that case, he's only here to kill. He asked the guy, does he want to kill him? Is he strong enough to do it? Carl replied that if he didn't try, he didn't waste any time and immediately attacked him with his sword. But Carl wasn't scared of anything and simply stood his ground and replied that he was a reckless idiot. After a few hours, Yi said that the ability to fight him as an equal, it was unexpected. He had become stronger, but in any case, his and the enemy's mental strength corresponds to C rank, which means he can't do it alone. Carl replied to him that he was the veriest chump. Had he really allowed the thought that he had come alone? Out of nowhere, an arrow appeared from the forest and hit right into the neck of E. He immediately blushed and realized that it was all over. This arrow was impregnated with poison. John immediately came out of the forest and told E what an unexpected encounter this was. The knight looked and asked, did they really decide to join forces with the Carl to finish him off? John replied that he who is wise is the one who is observant. The Onassis family is gaining more and more weight in Inferno day by day, and only by having such an ally can he get the demonic core. Yi got angry and said that they are vile. Do they know the consequences of offending the Dupan family? Kral immediately put his knife to his neck and said that what happens in the Valley of Ghosts stays in the Valley of Ghosts forever, and he didn't even regret slitting his neck. Carl started saying that that bastard, he had been putting him in trouble for so many years, and ended up getting killed by his blade. Now he's going to be so arrogant. John told him that he helped him kill Mai Yi. He could take back the demonic core he got, right? Carl replied that this is the kind of thing he has talked about before. What happens in the Valley of Ghosts stays in the Valley of Ghosts forever. John was surprised and asked what that meant. He doesn't mean he wants to take out a witness. Kral did not answer the boy and immediately cut his head with his knife and said that he had already gotten even with his main opponent. And how on earth could he keep alive a guy who could turn him in at any moment? But suddenly everything in the moment changed and he fell to his knees. Carl suddenly felt a concentrated demonic energy, and the aura of those third-rank monsters was no comparison to this. Outside the walls, Katerina asked Ms. Mel if she could feel it. The girl replied that it was definitely not one of the monsters that had been trained by the spiritual order, and some other monster must have wandered into the area allocated for the test. This energy is too powerful. It's at least a rank 4 monster, if not even higher, and to overpower a rank 4 monster, it takes the strength of 3 experts with the mental power of rank B. Soberly assessing the situation, she must immediately stop the trial. Katerina got really scared for that and remembered Tien, and she hoped he was all right. Tion and Fox came to the monument of a 4th-rank gargoyle monster. The fox said that this monster was different from all the monsters they had met before, and as long as he didn't notice them, maybe they would rather go the other way. But Tion immediately said no. You have to keep your word after all. He said he had to kill all the monsters, which means he won't miss a single one. The monster was surprised to see the humans, and they still hadn't run, and he hadn't seen such fools in a long time. The monster asked them, was their mental strength so low that they couldn't even feel its terrifying aura? Tion started laughing and asked him, what was he babbling about? And all he could see in front of him was a stone that was on the monster's head. What normal person would run away when there was a bag of money right in front of them? The monster asked with surprise, money? What does he mean by that? Tion didn't bother to explain and immediately rushed to attack. Slashing the monster's head said, that's the one. The monster couldn't dodge. He could definitely tell that not a single bit of mental power could be felt from him. But he is still capable of delivering such a blow. Of course, it's incredible. How'd he manage to do that? But suddenly he realized, and he must realize himself, that he lacked mental strength. And so must be their other way of developing their body's abilities. And that's why he was able to deliver such a blow. And even though his figure doesn't reach something like that, it's the only logical explanation. Tion told the monster that he didn't faint from his blow, and quite this monster is tough. The monster replied to the guy that he is too ignorant and arrogant. He sees right through him, and he would let him see his absolute armor, and applied his stone form. He thought that in this state, his entire body was covered in extremely hard granite, and no matter how strong he is, to hit him would break his arm. He is helpless in front of him. But Tion didn't waste any time and immediately struck with his fist, and the monster's head cracked. The monster was greatly surprised and asked what was wrong with this guy. He didn't hesitate for a second. He had never met people like this before. The fox ran up to the master and asked if he was all right. Tion replied that it was nothing, but this guy's head is pretty hard. The arm is numb, and said that she had taken his bag too. The fox replied that those were their trophies. Of course we can't forget about them. The fox sensed something and said, there's demonic energy here. It's aiming towards that monster. This is no longer a joke, he better be careful. Tien said he knew, and ordered her to stay out of the fight. Her job was to guard the stuff. He still has to get paid for all this. Monster said that people are really different. This is the first time he's met someone like this, and he should thank him for making him stretch his muscles. And it's been a long time since he's been in such high spirits. But he's not worried about the consequences of his actions. The monster took his trident and slammed it into the ground, telling them all to die, and summoned his dark raid, and said that his aura was poisonous. The monster replied that his mania not only deterred and scared away the enemy, but in the process of battle, it could also poison the enemy. And he was definitely finished. At the same time, at the entrance of the Ghost Valley, all participants were immediately withdrawn due to a rank 4 monster interfering with the trial. Min said it didn't seem that bad. and almost everyone made it back safely. Katerina replied that 2 were missing. The monster said that his demonic energy had already spread throughout the Ghost Valley, and very soon, all living things will be poisoned by its venom. They have nowhere to run. Tian asked Lisa if she was scared. Tian replied that she was a little uneasy at first, but she was with him, so she wasn't afraid of anything. Tian suddenly showed the orb and said that it was excellent, and pointing the orb at Lisa showed that it was his shield, Golden Pearl. The dome he created should protect her from this poison. The fox asked the guy, if he had something like that, why didn't he use it on himself? What had he given it to her for? Tian replied to her that she had promised to protect his bag. If the stuff was contaminated with toxins, he wouldn't be able to sell it. The fox realized at this moment that to Tian, money was more important than life. Tian realized that the toxicity of this poison was increasing over time, and it will take one move to kill him. Then you will need to use the purification mantra for detoxification. The monster told the guy that he can't defend himself, but he's still trying to save others. Does he really think he can still stand up to him in his condition? Tian replied to her that all he knew was chatter, and immediately applied a stern battle will see 7 stars. The monster looked at all this and thought, what is he doing waving his arms around so vigorously? He was mumbling to himself. Had his poison made him so unhinged? The fox suddenly remembered that she had heard something like this somewhere, an ancient treasure of the Xintian clan, and realized that it was the blessing of the 5 lightning bolts. And it is said that those who possess this knowledge are able to control thunder and electricity, taming demons, praying to ward off evil, and performing the ghost purification ceremony. And who would have thought that Tian would have such a technique? Tian gathered all of his energy into one and applied the 5 lightning blessing attack. A thunderous execution. The monster asked with surprise, magic? How can a person who has no mental power use magic? Surprising indeed. But what could such a small sphere do to him? And decided to show him what real magic is. The monster also gained all his strength and turned into one big ball, and immediately pointed it at the boy. What kind of ignorance is this? It's definitely not magic. It's a cultivator's technique, and launched a bolt of lightning straight into that ball. The monster was surprised and couldn't believe it. This simply couldn't be happening. He had broken through his sphere of darkness, and seeing the other energy in front of him realized that he had lost. But he also remembered that he had been ordered not to let anyone disturb her, and his mission was not yet complete. The fox looked at all of this with astonishment and couldn't believe that such a small electric sphere, yet it concentrated such explosive power. This is truly the blessing of the 5 lightning bolts. Just incredible. And it's a very powerful energy because the whole valley is shaking. It's like a real earthquake. It's because of that monster. And it looks like she was wrong. Mel realized that a rank 4 monster couldn't be responsible for this explosion. It definitely had to be much stronger. And in this situation, one can only ask for help from the spiritual order. We must ask them to send S-rank masters. Only then will there be a chance to deal with this monster. A huge part of the Ghost Valley was destroyed by Zhong Tianshan. Tian suddenly looked at the monster and saw that he had overdone it, and everything had been burned. And no matter how it affected its value, he picked up the rock and said it was all right. The core was still intact. The fox told him that it was still sent. Tian replied that it was nothing. It was nothing serious. He just needed to rest and meditate for a while. The poison will wear off in a matter of minutes. The fox said matter-of-factly, so why the hassle? The fox didn't bother to tell him anything and kissed him on the lips right away, and didn't give him a chance to say anything. Tian realized that she was helping him get the poison out of his system. The fox didn't stop and continued to do so. Lisa said that she was finally done. Tian replied that he could deal with the poison in his body, but he couldn't save her. The fox told him not to worry. She wouldn't die. She was his spirit companion. There is poison in her body right now, but since his spiritual energy is nourishing her, things will return to normal very soon. Tian said that as long as she was fine, there was no problem. Fox suddenly asked the guy, he's a cultivator after all. Has he heard anything about the Xintian clan? Tian replied that he hadn't heard anything like that. But why did she suddenly decide to ask him about it? The fox replied that it was nothing. Their time was coming to an end. It was time for them to go back. On the other side of the Ghost Valley, everyone is terrified. waiting for this horrible monster to appear. Mel stood in front of the gate and realized that it was quite a long road from Furno to Ghost Valley, so it would take some time for the spiritual order's reinforcements to arrive. And before the S-rank mental power master arrives here, she must guard the exit with all her might. Even if it costs her life, they can't let this monster hurt the Furno. Suddenly, they saw a silhouette in front of them. Mel said he's coming, and everyone get ready, but it turned out to be Tion. Stepping into the light, he asked what was going on here. The fox also said that they weren't late after all, so they had passed this test. The guard asked in surprise, was he dragging the corpse of a monster? But the other replied that an ordinary man with no mental powers. Mel realized that judging from the aura, it was indeed a rank 4 monster lost in the valley. But what was that explosion? She definitely sensed a much more powerful energy. This man is hiding his mental power. But how powerful is he? Suddenly Katerina came over and said that was great, and she knew he would be able to come back safely. Carl also came out to look at them and saw that this monster, whose aura made even him terrified, he's the strongest rookie. But how did that brat kill him? And something inexplicable must have happened in the valley. That's why that monster died. And this guy was just lucky to find him dead. Tion tossed the monster away and asked if there was anyone from the Witch Guild here. Let him see how much he would offer for it. The fox also showed the bag and said also this. Here he will find a lot of interesting things they managed to collect from the monsters. Let him appreciate it. Mel was surprised and asked, sell? Tion asked in response, what is it? Is it forbidden? The girl replied that no. Let her do as she wishes. Mel was surprised from the fact that he had defeated a rank 4 monster, but still decided to beg from those little monsters. But what kind of people are they after all? Not long after Tion and Fox left, an uninvited guest appeared in the depths of the Ghost Valley. The witch said they had killed the beast after all, and now she'd have to go back on her own. And the Furno rookies are so strong this time around. It's annoying. She applied her strength and picked up the rest of the stones, but she suddenly wondered why it made her feel nostalgic. And it's definitely a spiritual force. The trace of the battle with the cultivator. Soon, everyone calmed down a bit at the end of the trial of the Braves. Tion and Lisa sold the corpse of the monster, the 4th rank, and all the things they had managed to gather in the Ghost Valley. Everyone returned to the Holy Sword Square. Mel said that even though they had some difficulties during the trial this time, but everything ended well. And 2 candidates managed to get a demonic core. Carl from the Onassis family received 2/3 rank demonic cores. And Zhong Tian, the member recommended by the Steve family, received 1 rank 3 demon core, and 1 demon core of a rank 4 monster that had accidentally wandered into the valley. Carl thought that rank 4 monsters were beyond the competence of the test subjects at all. According to the rules, he was the number 1. He was the one who should be in the spotlight. Tion was surprised by the guy's look and asked him, what was he staring at? Didn't he ever see ears being cleaned? Carl thought it was just an abomination. Mel says that since they have passed the test, now they can try to get the sword. Next is the Holy Sword Ceremony. Which one of them wants to be first? Carl immediately replied that he was the first. He is the most distinguished heir of 4 great families. And if they're talking about who should get him out, it should definitely be him. Mel looked over and saw that he was cocky. Carl grabbed his sword with both hands and shouted that he was about to do it, and even released magic. Carl fell to the ground and realized that it just couldn't be pulled out, and it looks like it's just a sword from a silly legend. If even he couldn't do it, the others couldn't even think about it. People started saying that it looked like they weren't going to see anything outstanding this year either. And maybe next year someone will succeed. Katerina said that it wasn't just Carl who passed the test of the Braves. Fox replied that it was Zhong Tian's turn now. Tion stood there looking at them and said he didn't care. He was just going to get his item back. Carl heard all this and thought, what is this guy talking about? He talks like he has the holy sword in his pocket. Mel didn't take her gaze away from him either and thought, what is this Tion hiding from everyone? The guy immediately stood up and just stared at the sword. The sword suddenly spoke to him and said that he had finally arrived. Tion was surprised at the fact that he was talking to him. Sword said he no longer knew how many years he had spent here waiting for him. Did he remember a day out of glory? He had once lured him into a den of monsters with a single phrase, where they had fought for 3 days and 3 nights, and then participated in the flying immortal competition. He used it in bypassing all the obstacles, led them to victory. He fought side by side and were each other's true family. After all, he was meditating by the waterfall, and he was pretending, someone who was simply necessary on the path to immortality. Tian suddenly felt that he had a bad feeling. This sword seemed to him to be very agitated. Was it because he had been alone for 5,000 years? Tian said that no matter how long he waited, he was now returning home. Tian took the sword with one hand and pulled it out, but suddenly a bright light appeared. People asked, "What's going on?" The holy sword emitted such a dazzling light. Tian raised his sword above his head and said, "Welcome back, soaring dragon." People were amazed and said he had pulled it out. For 5,000 years, no one could do it, and this guy managed to do it so easily. The dragon said he finally got out of that stupid rock. "Kid, does it feel something to see him in his prime again?" Tian was surprised and thought, "What else is a baby?" The dragon said he was betting. He was incredibly touched. But why is the kid silent? Is he really that happy that they met again? Or was his subconscious still wandering in memories of the glorious times he recalled? Tian started shouting at him that it was because he couldn't remember anything the dragon had said. Was he always such a narcissist? And he should never be called that again. People started shouting that the holy sword had transformed into an unseen divine being. And it was chatting so sweetly with this man. And he even scolded him. The dragon told the guy that's how it is. He's forgotten everything. But that's not the worst outcome. Surviving a battle like that is a miracle. He lost his memory, but he was still able to find him. And that means that not even thousands of years can separate them. He would always fly to the light radiating from him. Tian said that he should turn with his sword. The dragon asked if it was because he was more masculine in that form. Tian answered him that no, Katarina doesn't really know why the sword took that form, but he managed to pull it out. She should be the first to congratulate him. Katarina ran up and shouted congratulations to Tian. She always believed he would do it. He is now a well-deserved Furno brave. Tian said that he was the one who should be thanking her, and he thanked her for recommending her to them all. Katarina replied that it was all she could do for her. She thought it was so touching. Tian thanked her. The fox walked beside her and hugged Tian and said that he was indeed able to match this first-class weapon. And he was definitely not an ordinary person. Katarina at this point just broke down at what she saw. And she saw that she had a competitor. Lissa started to say that her decision to follow him. Tian suddenly said he couldn't breathe. Did she want to strangle him? Katarina watched and thought, why is it like this? Could it be because she was being too modest? If she was a little more determined, then Tian would hug her. Mel also came over and said that the legend of 1,000 years ago turned out to be true. It's amazing. And the holy sword still has the power to transform. She has been hosting this event for several years now. And today she was fortunate enough to witness the holy sword find its owner. It's incredibly moving. She asked Tian if he could hand her the sword. She wishes to take a closer look. Tian replied to her to take it and not break it. This sword is very expensive. Tian said that it was quite weighty, so let him hold it tight. Mel told him not to worry. She would just look at it and return it right away. Mel gripped the sword with one hand, and immediately she was pulled down. Tian said he had warned her to hold it tight, hadn't he? But Lissa realized that wasn't the problem at all. But looking at the sword, they saw that it had left a mark in the ground. Tian said that he passed it normally. She was the one who couldn't hold it, so there was no need to blame him for it. Mel said she understands, and it seems he has already recognized him as his master, so the others won't be able to pick him up. Fox knew that it was an ancient high-level weapon. Only immortal cultivators with spiritual powers could control it. It can't be any other way. And not only this sword in the great war between immortals and demons, many magical artifacts must have been lost. They are all scattered in different parts of the world. And in this world, the only one who can use it is Zhong Tian. Tian looked at the sword and said that the blade was a little dull. Wouldn't she want to reimburse him? Then he wouldn't hold her responsible. Mel was surprised and asked, damage? Did he give her the sword on purpose so that he could blackmail her under that pretext? But suddenly the head of the Heath family came in and said that he had heard that the brave man Katarina had recommended had drawn his sword. Certainly an incredible accomplishment, especially at such a young age. They've organized a banquet for the occasion. Would a true hero? Tian asked him who he was, and why would he want to have lunch with him? Mel told him that he was the head of the Steve family, one of the four great families, Katarina's father, and he pulled out the holy sword, and therefore is a reason for the pride of the Steve family as its prestige age. He invited him to personally express his gratitude. He shouldn't be so rude. Tien thought it sounded cool, and he thinks it's a great opportunity to make some money. But Katarina looked sad. Katarina at this moment thought that she was just a loser, and Tian was right in front of her, and she couldn't do anything. Tian walked up to her and asked what she was doing here. Her father invited them to the banquet. Katarina was surprised that he was standing so close to her. She could feel his breath, and her heart was about to burst out of her chest. And if he heard, how ashamed she would be. Katarina came to her senses and asked him what he said. Is he going to her house for lunch? Is he? Tian replied that yes. And she was kind of weird today. Katarina said no. He had just imagined it. Heath looked at them in amazement and saw, as expected of a hero who managed to get his hands on the holy sword. He stands out from the crowd. Arriving at the residence of the Steve family, Lisa asked, "Is this her house? It's so huge." Katarina replied that if she didn't mind, she could stay here. And of course, she wouldn't have to pay for food and lodging. Tian was saying to the head at this time that he seemed to have a lot of money. He had gotten the sword, and now his family would be more popular. He thought he was due for it. Heath asked the guy, doesn't he have enough money? He tells the butler he'll bring what he needs. Tian said it's not bad. He's such a good person. Heath replied to the guy that he's Furno's hero. A little support wouldn't hurt him. Fox heard the conversation and was surprised that he just said he needed money like that. No tact whatsoever. Sitting down at the table, Heath asked the guests, did they not like the food? Tian replied that they could eat. No need to worry about him. And as long as he has money, he doesn't need food or water. But he doesn't know why this is so. The fox thought that this was starvation, and it was rumored that cultivators who had reached the higher realms could practice with just spiritual power, not relying on food and drink. And it turns out he's already reached such heights. He just doesn't remember it. So he doesn't know what the reason for this behavior is. After a few days, the dragon said he had had enough. Tian asked him, and when did he have time to get out? The dragon replied that he had smelled the flavor of food for the first time in 5,000 years. Heath watched and thought, is this the incarnation of the holy sword? It's even more amazing up close. Katarina asked Tian, he didn't sell the demon core he brought from the Ghost Valley, right? Tian replied that no. He thinks it's quite a rare item, and so he's in no hurry to sell it. What is it even needed for? Katarina replied that it was a rather rare material that could only be obtained from high-level monsters. There are not so many of them, so they are highly valued, and they are most often used to reinforce equipment. You just need to add the core in the process of forging armor and weapons, which will significantly increase the quality of the product. An item with a magic core will also be more effective in battle against monsters. And the Association of Demon Hunters is actively buying up cannonballs. In his fourth-order magic core, the proceeds could buy a nice house in Furno. Tian was greatly surprised. Just one core, and he could buy an entire house with it. He would definitely get rich. Tian gave it to the dragon, and the dragon ate it. The dragon said that this kernel was a bit tough, but overall not bad. Does he have any others by any chance? He could eat the others too. But suddenly he saw something and asked. His aura changed. Tian replied to him that he was a stupid dragon. Did he just eat his house? The dragon said that he just ate 2 demonic cores. What's wrong with that? Tian put his hand in his mouth and replied that he was a stupid fool. That's the core he wanted to sell and buy his house. Let him get his house back. He spent half a day pulling that cannonball out of that gargoyle's head. The dragon shouted at him to stop. Does it really want to kill him? He told the Lord that you can't do that. It's Furno's holy sword. He'll kill him like that, and he won't be able to explain himself to the townspeople. He ate his demon core. He'll give him a house for it. What would he say to something like that? Tian replied to the head that no one was pulling his tongue. There was no turning away. Suddenly the dragon said that he felt a powerful energy spreading through his body, and he feels like he's getting stronger because of this core. Tian asked him, was he serious? Was he just trying to fool him to justify himself? The fox also said that it was indeed possible. Even though it can turn into a dragon, it's still a weapon. Katarina also said that it was correct. The demonic core strengthened it. But suddenly, Herd, the head steward of the Steve family, came in and addressed Mr. and Miss Katerina. Herd said that the three great Furno families and the spiritual order of the Holy Cross had sent gifts to their hero. Should he bring them so they could familiarize themselves? Tion was surprised and asked, "Are the presents for him? Have the steward drop them off soon? He can't wait to see what's in there." Herd said the Walton family is giving him 30,000 spiritual baht and a document for the right to own a luxury villa in the prestigious Furno neighborhood. Fox said that nothing less was expected from the four great families. But Tion's eyes were just shining, and he was even drooling. But Tion said that here was the house his lord had already promised him, so he didn't need this paper. Let them give it out in money instead, and said that the DuPont family was giving the hero a paladin armor. This golden armor is impossible to penetrate. Tion said it's too heavy and looks bulky, not used to it. But it's better with money again. Herd said, "Here's a gift from the Onassis family. 3 beautiful maids." Tion asked with surprise. Suddenly 3 girls came in, and one of them said they were impressed. He was so courageous, and in the end they even pulled out the holy sword. They are honored to be near him. And can they stay near him and serve him forever? They will do whatever the master commands. And as long as they are around him, he will definitely be comfortable. Katerina didn't like it, and even realized that they were promiscuous, and not like normal maids. And to send such a gift, it is very indecent of the Onassis family. Tion said that there are 3 beautiful girls in front of him. How can he resist? The girl replied that the Lord was worthy of it. Tion suddenly remembered and said that they had previously said that they would do anything to satisfy him. The girl replied that even if anything like that, Tion turned to the servant and told him that he heard everything. Those 3 had better be exchanged for money too. They are trying to placate him with women. The girl asked in surprise, had they been rejected? She's been in this business so long. This is the first time she's been rejected by a client. And the last gift from the spiritual order of the Holy Cross. Spiritual director Mel, and her gift for the brave man is a knight's medal. Mel told the guy that he was the only one who had managed to pull out the holy sword in 1,000 years. And the order has decided to award him a medal. In recognition of his contribution to the development, Tion said it looks good. Can it be exchanged for money? He asked. Mel replied that a knight's medal is the highest award, a symbol of high status. It is not something that can be measured with money, and it's a symbol of the order's recognition. As long as he has it, he can give the order to any follower below D rank. Tion made up his mind and replied that let him keep it for now. Mel said that there was actually something else besides the medal. Tion replied that if she wanted something, just let her say it. Only stalling for nothing. Mel said it might seem cavalier. Katerina asked with surprise, touching Tion, "What does that mean?" Lisa said at this moment, Mel is really brave. Tion asked her, is she trying to make some kind of profit for herself? Mel replied that she wasn't. No need to understand her wrong. She is just extremely curious about his power. She practices magic that can determine the power of others. This even applies to previously unknown species. He managed to pull out the holy sword without having a single bit of mind power. She wants to understand what kind of power lies within his body. The fox asked if this was really how she would test his strength. Katerina replied. Tion asked her afterward, is that it already over? If she kept pawing him, he would write her a check. Mel replied that just a minute more. Mel realized that this was for real, no trace of mind power, need to move on. Only then would she be able to experience its true power. Suddenly Mel fell to her knees and froze. The guards asked Mistress what was wrong with her. Mel replied that she felt some unknown power. She felt something similar from the holy sword. It is an incredible power that has nothing to do with the power of the mind. Mel asked, what is this terrible power? Could it really be the same thing? Tion said that he could feel the monster's aura from there. And it's time to get to work. A dragon suddenly appeared and burned everything in its path. People were burning alive and asking for help. But one of the girls was also wounded and asked where did the monster come from? They only exist in fairy tales, don't they? But how did it end up in their world? But it was one of the ancient dragons that burned everything in its path. The girl has decided it's over. Furno would just burn to the ground. Are they all going to die here? Tion came and told her not to be afraid. He picked up his sword and decided to fight the dragon. Mel and the others came too, and she was saying he just blew a little. He blew the dragon's fire away. Aren't they the least bit surprised? That's just against common sense. Katerina said that when it comes to Tian, nothing is impossible. The fox replied that it's a standard situation. They'll get used to it soon. But here's the dragon. Really, what's going on here? Mel replied that the ancient legend of Furno said that he, like the holy sword, was from the distant past. The energy of the holy sword attracted him, so he attacked the city more than once. The dragon spewed flames, destroying everything around it, turning the city into a living hell. Their mages were powerless in the face of such a powerful enemy, and everyone could only hope for the appearance of a hero who could pull out the holy sword. Fortunately, as time went on, the dragon weakened, and so stopped attacking the city so vigorously, and eventually disappeared. It turns out it's all true. Did Tian's blade really attract him? This is amazing. Could it be that the ancient dragon and the dragon blade were somehow related? Mel said that Tian has to deal with everything. Since he pulled out the sword, he can kill the dragon too. Tian told the girl to remember to pay him for his bodyguard services. The girl asked, what does that mean? He's charging money to save a life? But she doesn't have any spiritual stones right now. But she can repay in kind. The dragon saw the opponent and started to attack. The girl saw it too and shouted that it was on its way. Tian asked, is this animal crazy? The dragon came very close to him and opened its mouth, but Tian raised his hand and ordered him to lie down. The dragon didn't expect this and immediately obeyed the order from the guy. Mel saw and was saying what a terrifying force. The whole of Furno shook like an earthquake. Tian put his hand on his head and said, this beast is not particularly docile. It seemed to be maddened by the pain, and it's a very ancient monster, but it has very little sense of the energy currents flowing in it. The sword told the guy that it was an artifact. This beast must have absorbed the magic artifact back during the great battle, and the forces noticed him. It senses his spiritual power, and therefore thinks it can help by relieving him of his pain. It never paid attention to him. He hadn't shown up in thousands of years, so he already thought the dragon was dead. But who would have thought it would show up now? Tian also got excited and said that it was good luck. And it's his. He punched the dragon and ordered him not to think that if he pretended to be dead, he would be released. And if he doesn't get the artifact, he's not leaving here alive. And he can guarantee that too. Tian didn't spare him and immediately let slash with his sword and killed the dragon immediately in front of everyone. The dragon couldn't withstand such a hard blow and immediately spat out the artifact from its body. The fox immediately said that the dragon had spewed the artifact. He had defeated it. Tian took the artifact in his hands and said, here it is. It was an ancient magic artifact Chinchio mirror. But entering the mirror, Tian was saying that there was a different space here, and it's an artifact of space and time. Now he knows where he can store his earned spirit stones. The dragon told him that this was not only a place to store items, but also a place to live and practice. And if you find the right materials and refine it, this space can be used for other things. It is a whole world that is under his control. As long as something is illuminated by this mirror, it will be absorbed and will end up inside. But suddenly, a red dragon appeared and turned to Zhong Tian, the head of the Xintian sect, and said that he recognized him. Tian replied to him that he was turning out to have come to his senses. Would he even recognize it? The red dragon replied that, of course, a cultivator who had once fought their demonic deity. How could he forget? And that's him, but as if he didn't quite. What's that under dragon talking about? Let him speak normally. Red replied that the guy looks the same, but here's his temperament, and even his strength is far inferior. How could he have survived the battle with him? What did he do to him? Tian replied, no one knows. Red got angry after that and said that this guy was insolent. The demon god is the absolute ruler who united the demon world, and every living thing obeys him. No cultivator can stop him, and he's no exception. Red immediately used the dragon's breath and let out a full blast of the fire that was within him. Tian accepted this and said that he had asked for it, and used his sword against the fire. Tian said that it was a dragon's sword. Immediately, he released his dragon sword that passed through the sheath of fire. But soon the red dragon fell to the ground, and Tian said that they are both dragons after all. So why is he so weak? Tian asked his dragon if he wanted the ancient dragon's demonic core. The dragon replied that, of course. Ever since he swallowed the first one, that's all he's been thinking about. Tian said that this beast said he was Zhong Tian, but kind of not really. What does that mean? He knows a lot about those times. Let him spill it out. The dragon replied that the first time they met, he had said he had lost his memory. And he had realized the reason even then. It was just that it was too early, so he didn't tell her. But in reality, he was only a part of the soul of Zhong Tian, a true follower of the Santian sect. For some reason he doesn't understand, he has regained consciousness. And that's why the dragon said he was different from him. Tian asked, is he a piece of Jun's soul? No wonder when he sees him, only scraps of unrelated memories pop up in his mind. But in fact, when he came to his senses, he was still staying in Xinyuan village, only to be freed when the thunder started. The dragon replied that it made sense. The Xinyuan tree is an ancient sacred tree. Evil forces cannot affect the spiritual energy contained within it. And being there in a dream, that's where he gained consciousness. Tian asked, but what happened to the actual body? What exactly happened that year? The dragon replied that 5,000 years ago, a demonic deity was born in the world. He was invincible, advancing step by step, conquering the whole world. And in a moment when the demon god was intoxicated by his achievements, the high priest prophesied to him that he would fall at the hand of an immortal. And to change his fate, the demon god created a tainted weapon that could be used to resist cultivators. He led an army of demons and started a war with the cultivators. In this great war, the immortals suffered great losses. But the founder of the Xintian sect fought until the last moment, in an attempt to stop the demon god. He used all his strength to imprison the demon god in his own soul, and then blew it up, perishing along with the demon god. And because Xintian Eyes was practicing secret techniques, his soul was not destroyed, but simply split into 9 pieces, which were now scattered all over the continent. He had not recognized such power before, but now he had his approval. And since he inherited the title of the founder of the Xintian sect, he must know this history of hatred. Revive the honor and glory of immortal cultivators. But their main goal now was to find the shards of the original spirit. Tian told him that, meaning he had now told him that he was not who he thought he was. And then she put such a burden of responsibility on his shoulders. He realizes that it's still hard for him to accept. And whoever wants to take that responsibility, let him. He's not interested. The dragon was surprised that this guy refused. But if he doesn't search for the original spirit shards, the world of immortals will truly come to an end. And it seems he has only one way out. The dragon said that each spirit shard contains incredible power and various techniques to help you become stronger. The sect founder had left many spiritual artifacts that would be attracted to the original spirit, and every artifact is a priceless rare treasure. Tian was surprised when he heard that it was priceless. Tian said it's time to go. It's about time to leave Furno. They're going to look for the spirit shards and the treasure of Xintian. But come nightfall, Monster turned to the demon goddess and said she had brought what she asked for, and the tainted weapon of the ruler's cube. It's hers. The goddess immediately used magic and took her gifts. The goddess said that it was really, really great. It's so strange to gain such power after 5,000 years. Monster said she had to report something to her. She felt the aura of an immortal near Furno. The goddess asked with surprise, "Immortal? Is he still alive? Let them go and bring her his head." On the eve of Zhong Tian's departure from Furno, Mel lay on her bed and said that ever since he appeared in Furno, amazing things have been happening here time and time again. Not only did he kill an ancient dragon, but he also used spatial techniques. It was even hard to believe. And Zhong Tian, what kind of magic does he possess, she thought? And why is it that after they met, he was all she could think about? But she decided that she must not allow such thoughts. It was a sin to think of a man. As a nun, she must keep her emotions and desires in check. But in Katarina's bedroom, she was saying that Tian was already leaving tomorrow. But she still hadn't done anything until now. They would have a chance to meet again. What should she do now, she thought. Should she confess her feelings to him? But it was very awkward for her. And what would she do if she was rejected? It's actually very complicated. The fox at this time realized that Katarina was not only beautiful and well-built, and most importantly, she had a lot of money. Therefore, Zhong Tian must like her. She was a little jealous, but if it didn't work out, Zhong Tian would surely regret it. But Katarina was taking a bath and saw smoke appear. and immediately she felt that her body was acting strangely. But in the morning, Tien came to Katerina and asked if she was asleep. "He's leaving tomorrow," and Fox said to come and say goodbye to her. Katerina came out to him and replied that he had finally arrived. She had been waiting for him. She thought he would leave without saying goodbye, but he couldn't leave her like that. Tian said that her complexion is not good. Does she know it's easy to catch a cold like that? Let her drink more hot tea. And he was grateful for her concern. He didn't want to disturb her so late. Let her stay warm and take care of herself. But Katerina couldn't help herself and hugged him and told him not to leave. And she doesn't want him to leave her. When he saved her from the goblins, she loved him even then. She can't sleep every night. And before he leaves, why don't they make special memories with each other? Tien replied that she would never say such a thing to her. Fox hadn't done anything to her, had she? Katerina replied that no. She was out of her mind. She pulled down her dress and said she knew what she was doing. The next day, outside Furno, Lissa asked the gentleman what was wrong. He hadn't said a word in all that time. What is he thinking about? He's so distracted. Did he not sleep well last night? Tian replied that it was fine and said that it slept great last night. The fox replied that it was great then. But on the way, Carl suddenly came out to them and turned to Tien. He told him that Tien wasn't going anywhere today. The fox replied to him that he must be out of his mind. How dare he alone block their way? Carl laughed and asked in reply, who said he was alone? Suddenly Carl's mother appeared and said that the holy sword was Furno's treasure. It can't belong to someone like him to give up the sword. And her family would never bother him again. But Palop also came out and said he'd get what he deserved tonight. In a test of heroes, he took away the demonic core, killing John Walton without hesitation. The DuPont family's grand knight Alan also said that his son died by his hand. He will avenge him today. Tian said, it turns out that all the losers decided to go through his soul at the same time. Did he tell them that? Carl replied, telling him to stop talking. And now it's going to be decided by force. Tian said that the way they have C or S level strength, he doesn't care. In front of his blade, everyone is equal. He has to go. Since they are in his way, everyone will die. Carl told the guy that there is no limit to his insolence. And the S-rank representatives of the three great Furno families are here. They're going to teach him a lesson. Carl realized that this guy had outmaneuvered him many times over, robbing what was rightfully his. It was time to pay him back. Today he would die a miserable death. Tian told the guy that since he was so eager to teach him a lesson, Palop said he was just a boy without any mental power. He managed to defeat the ancient dragon by relying on some clever tricks of his own. Now he was going to show him what true S-rank power was, and he immediately directed his energy at the guy. Tian also raised his sword and asked him, "Is this a normal lightning bolt?" He also waved his sword and said he could do that too. Palop saw the guy's attack devouring his lightning and couldn't believe it. And the grouse was killed in a flash. Alan also joined the battle and said that he would try it now, and immediately used the Keeper of Divine Light. He put his shield in front of the guy's attack, but he was still injured. Alan felt it was such a powerful attack that his arm was numb even, and this guy is much stronger than what they expected. And if the shield wasn't strong enough, the consequences would be pretty serious. The girl asked them what was wrong with the two of them. Had they been fighting for a long time and had forgotten how to do it? Palop replied that he wasn't as simple as he might seem. She should be more careful. The girl said that the reputation of the Onassis family was forged by arms and established in battles. Did he think she would fear some boy? And if they let the two of them leave Furno, their three families would be dishonored. She immediately attacked and said they were finished. Tian wasn't scared and gave her attack to get closer to him. And soon there was an explosion. But she said it wasn't enough. She didn't stop and screamed that she wanted them dead in a flash. Only then would she be satisfied. Alan saw the explosion and said that this woman is really crazy. He's afraid her attacks, even his divine light guardian, wouldn't be able to withstand. Carl was smiling too and thought that his mother should have had him in pieces by now. This is what happens to those who annoy Mr. Ben. The girl looked and thought, how is this possible? Is he using an even stronger shield than Alan? Tian said that these whips are only good for S&M games. She wouldn't kill anyone with them, but she's dressed to match. He's heard that nobles have all sorts of interesting tendencies. He thinks there's a good price to be paid for her leather skirt. Tien caught her rope and pulled on it. She was screaming for it to founder. Tian replied that it was nothing special. He just liked her clothes. The girl realized that this guy was saying such things. He was a pervert. The girl let go of her weapon and knew it was dangerous. If he did what he wanted to do, she couldn't lose her reputation. Alan told Jenny that she was blushing. The girl told him to shut up immediately. Carl thought to himself, why can't they do it? They are S-level masters, Furno's strongest fighters. And even they can't fight him. But he doesn't even have mental powers. Then where did he get such strength from? He's incredibly angry right now. Didn't they just now want to teach him a lesson? So why are they standing still? And if they were done, then it was his turn. Tian pounced on them and said that this was a technique he had only learned a couple days ago, and so he wasn't really used to it. This is a great opportunity to practice. Tian immediately applied his undressing technique and cut all the things on Carl's body that were. Carl was frightened and felt that chilling feeling. Could he really do such a thing? Tian said that it was a new technique, so he wasn't very good at it yet. What a pity. All the clothes are torn. Carl started yelling that he was sick. What does he want to do? How dare he humiliate the young master? Tian said he better pull up his pants, because this time he's going after his mother, and she better not move. But Jenny dodged the attack and jumped into the air. He said the guy kept hoping for his nefarious tricks and on about how much he liked her clothes. And staring at her. He has a son his age. Let him put his dirty thoughts away. Jenny said that for the sake of their family's bright future, he would kill him today. Now she's going to show him what he's worth. She's not the type to dabble with magic. Let her be proud to die this way. Jenny immediately used the magic of the Onassis family and used her destructive shot. Carl started to dodge and thought he just wants money. Jenny said he could run as much as he wanted. Her magic projectiles would still be aimed at him. Tian shouted to Lisa to stand there and don't move. He would go get one thing. And her they wouldn't touch. Tian answered her not to worry. It's simple magic. And they can't catch up to him. He just jumped out to meet the attack. The fox saw that he had just gotten something, and he was so fast. He can't even see anything. Tian got close to her and asked, did she seriously think he wanted more from her? Then he would do as he wished. Tian immediately applied his attacks and used the cut. Tian immediately cut her straps from her clothes. Jenny immediately grabbed onto every part of her body and screamed as her clothes fell down. How is she supposed to look people in the eye now? He's a total libertine. Tian asked, so, is that enough to be called a libertine? We need to practice more. Jenny looked and told the guy that it was her whip, and what was she going to do? But Tian made a knot and tied her up right away. At this time, Jenny's imagination was telling her that it was over. And age is just a number. Women only get better with age. And now she's completely defenseless. What is he going to do with her? Krau also started yelling that he was an animal and asked him to let his mother go and not to treat her like that. Fox knew at this time that Zhong Tian thought somewhat differently from other people. He couldn't be compared to normal people at all. Carl asked the others what they were waiting for. Let them attack together. Would they really stand by and watch the bastard insult his mother? Alan told him to calm down a bit, and they are ready to do their best. Palop immediately used his lightning blade and applied a snowy instant. But Alan didn't stop either and summoned his great knight and applied the patronage of the gods. Tian started laughing and said, that's pretty interesting. He had become so huge. Alan replied that not only that, he had also gotten much stronger, and now he will experience it for himself, the incomparable power of a deity, and directed a powerful fiery attack. The attack was so strong that there was a big explosion. Alan thought it was over. It was a pretty hard hit. It could have hurt Jenny, but it had to hit for sure. Tian simply put up his sword and said, not bad. In an attack of this magnitude for a warrior of his level, he is amazed. But here's the one thing that confuses him. How dare he call himself a deity? But Tian didn't just leave it at that and used his powers against him. Alan immediately sensed something terrible and said that it was impossible. And he put all his strength into that punch and not a scratch on him. And he's also suppressing his strength. It can't be. He's an invincible great knight. He has a divine blessing. He can't lose to him. But Tian was faster and immediately attacked him and asked the knight what he had just called him. Alan repeated to the guy that he was a petty beggar, but Tian left him no choice and immediately waved his sword in front of his head. Alan couldn't stop it and began to spill his blood. Tion told him to watch his tongue in the next life. Carl started to get scared and yelled at him not to do it. If dying, why drag him to the grave? Tien said it was all for some sucker. Crushed by someone he asked for help. He definitely deserved it. Tien came down and said he was the last one left, and asked the man what was his name. The man replied that his name was the Shining Sword Palop. Tion told the Shining Sword that it could attack. Palop used all his strength and used a lightning attack. Tion looked at him and said that he had such a weird name and he was running away. Palop decided that this kid is not their level, and Alan and Jenny are already defeated, and he's not going to die here. In terms of combat power, he's not as good as those two. But in terms of speed and lightning swordsmanship and lightning speed is something he's sure of. That way he can't do anything to him, no matter how strong he is. Tien caught up with him and asked him about his friends staying there. Did he not care about them at all? Palop was surprised and couldn't believe his eyes. The boy used his strength and grabbed him by the throat. But Palop suddenly told him to stop. Tion immediately used lightning and burned him completely at once. When he approached his body, he said that he was trying to hold back, but he was really fried. This time, Katerina was lying on the bed thinking, what's wrong with her? She feels so hot, and it's probably because she's thinking about Jun Tion. He and the fox must have traveled on their way. What is he doing now, she thought. Tien told Jenny that his buddies were done. Only she was left. The dragon replied, that's right. She's all alone, which means they can do whatever they want to her. Jenny said you don't have to do that. She's a decent woman. She'll do anything. Tion showed the sheet and said she said it herself. No one forced her. And told her to sign the paper, and he wouldn't touch her. Jenny looked and asked with surprise, where did she get that kind of money? Tion replied that she didn't have any, but there are other great families. And then the dragon told her that it seemed her son was still breathing, and it was up to her to sign or not. Jenny collapsed and realized that she had signed that paper, and he didn't even untie it. She had never met such insolent people before. She tried to slowly approach her son and screamed at him that his mother would not let him die. But suddenly a strange being came and said that she felt an incredible flow of spiritual energy coming from here. She doesn't know what she's talking about at all. Don't let her talk nonsense. Let her untie her as soon as possible. It won't be long before her son. The monster said there were echoes of that aura coming from her. Her interesting appearance. It was his doing, wasn't it? So where did he disappear to? Is this guy the cultivator she's talking about? And why is he looking for him? He's incredibly powerful. Monster replied that she wanted to kill him. Jenny started yelling that the bastard had gone east. If she went after him now, she might still be able to catch up. You mean he left, leaving the witnesses alive? She immediately turned around and started walking away. But Jenny was yelling at her to stop. So, he's just going to walk away? Couldn't she at least help her? She's having the worst luck with rude people today. Suddenly someone appeared above them, and the sun hid in the shadows. Jenny was surprised and asked what it was, but as she turned around, she saw a large and healthy piece of stone standing over her. The monster lowered it and said that since this was a battle, cruelty was an essential part of it. They all turned out to be kind-hearted and soft cultivators, and they certainly wouldn't compete with her. On the way, Lissa told the guy that he was looking at that receipt the whole way. Tion replied that it was 99,999 spiritual stones. And as soon as they deal with the magical artifacts, he'll be right back in Inferno for his money. The fox felt that the aura in this world was already polluted with demonic energy. Only from spiritual stones could he draw pure spiritual energy. It's not even surprising that he likes money so much. After all, spiritual stones are the source of his energy. Tion told her that they had already been on the road for so long. She must be tired, and it was getting evening outside, so they could find a place for her to sleep. The fox thought, where could they spend the night? Tion said that they must rely on her perception when searching for Xuantian's treasure. So she should be in the ranks, and his Chinchou mirror is perfect for that purpose. She hasn't had a chance to go there yet, so they'll sleep there tonight. In the mirror, Lissa thought, what was wrong with her today? How could she have misheard so much? She felt uneasy and heavy, and she couldn't sleep at all. And he's pretty simple, except for money, he's not interested in anything. Yesterday, when he and Catherine had been in the same room, he'd been just as nonchalant. But she came to her senses and thought it was a horror. And thought, how could she have thought something like that? She can't stay here, or these thoughts will continue to fill her head. She can't sleep anyway. So she decides she's going to get some fresh air. She went through the mirror and thought what happened between Joan Tion and Catherine was completely her fault. So she shouldn't have such feelings, and she's just relying on his spiritual strength to survive. But suddenly she felt something flying at her, and she dodged it immediately. Who dared to attack her sneakily? Was it those clingy guys from Furno again? But looking up, she saw that she was being attacked by stone monsters, and realized that she just wanted to go for a walk. But now she had to fight again. The fox dodged their attacks and immediately used purple flames and launched nukes directly at the monsters. The fox suddenly thought, who is it that has taken to playing these silly games? Let him show himself immediately. But Monster was behind her and asked with a foul voice if she had called out to her. The fox used an immediate attack and thought, when did she have time to be behind him? She had absolutely no feeling. The monster said she was following a trail of spiritual energy, and that's where the trail stopped. And then she saw her appear out of nowhere. And there's a tremendous amount of spiritual energy emanating from her. And the cultivator from the Valley of Ghosts. The monster didn't give up talking to her further and thrust her trident at her. The fox asked lastly, as she dispelled her charms. The monster replied that pain, and it was the easiest way to dispel the illusion. She stuck out her trident and left her for dead. The monster said that her charms were truly amazing. It was even a pity to get out of this dream world. She had simply underestimated the charms of the demon god, and sooner or later he will become the lord of the whole world. It is on him that she will lead incredible hopes. Therefore, she will not allow anyone to desecrate it. The fox said goodbye to her life immediately after these words. She realized that she had slept for so long, and it wouldn't be easy to be revived again. This time it was really over, and she couldn't die here. The fox was greatly frightened and shouted to Tion to save her. Tion immediately appeared, and in one fell swoop chopped the stone that should crush her. Tion said that it's quite dangerous to go out alone in the middle of the night. Next time, be sure to have him take it with him. The fox cried and told Tien that he was just an idiot, and why couldn't he have come a little earlier? Tion answered her to stop roaring. He had come. After all, Monster was surprised and couldn't believe it. Asked her what was wrong with her. Monster noticed that he and the demon god had such a resemblance, and they are absolutely identical. But how is that possible? But the demon god is a creature of noble blood. But don't dwell on that. It must be some bad effects of the spell. Monster said she wondered who could have done something like that to that woman and how. But now it's very clear to her, and there's an incredibly intense spiritual energy emanating from her. He's the one she has to kill. Tion asked with surprise, demonic magic that raises dust? The monster replied, it's that simple. Now she's going to make him regret his words. The monster gathered all the rocks that surrounded them and used the raging wind, directing it at the guy. She said that these countless stones and debris would cut his flesh like a razor. There's no way for him to dodge. In just a moment, there would be nothing left of him. She didn't stop there and continued to attack him with stones, saying that he wouldn't even have a chance to ask for mercy. She sighed in exhaustion and said that finally, it was over. There shouldn't be anything left alive of this guy. But seeing the light, she was surprised and stared. Tion told her that she had just mentioned that she had met Jenny. Tion threw his attack at her and shouted that he was talking to him. Didn't she really hear it? The monster was unable to dodge against this attack, and the energy passed through her. She couldn't believe she'd been taken down with one punch. How could he be so strong? Is this the true power of a cultivator? Ten said as he asked her again. How is Jenny doing? Monster asked why she cares about her so much. All of a sudden, she said she killed her. But in the same second, she saw something strange and thought, what's going on? Had his aura changed? The monster said she sensed murderous intent coming from him. And did she say something wrong? Did Tien ask her who she killed? Monster began to feel that she had unknowingly started to stagger backwards. And this is the purest deadly intent? It's creepy. It's unbelievable, and the power of his suppression is simply beyond his imagination. And before him, she could not breathe. And why does he care so much for this Jenny? Was there really a secret romantic liaison between them? And the whip with which that woman was bound was the best proof of it. And she killed his woman, so what? He can't scare her. She will never let anyone see her like that again. And she hadn't accomplished her mission yet. She is a level 5 subordinate of the Demon King, Obsidian Obistin. and she's come to take his life by order of the Demon King. And she's about to put all her power into that punch. And she's going to show him her strongest spell. And it's going to be the deciding factor in their fight. Tion noticed that it was energy gathering somewhere in the clouds. And it's not like she doesn't want to, and suddenly Monster applied the meteor shower. Stones from the system started heading towards the landing point. Tion looked at all of this and said, "This is unbelievable, and really a real meteorite. Even so, what could he do to him?" And released his dragon that would consume that fire. The dragon completely ate all those firestones and left everything in his stomach. He sat down on the ground. Tion asked, "A simple level 5 demon wants to take his life?" And now she's overestimating her capabilities. Monster sat on her knees and realized that she had lost. And now, finally, the power of the cultivators is so terrifying. It wasn't even surprising that the demon god was prophesied to die at his hands. But that's even completely impossible. A demon god would never lose to someone like him. There is no creature that could defeat a perfect deity. Tion said she had one last question for her. Monster asked, "Does he want to ask about the demon god?" And she won't tell him anything. Tion replied that he wasn't going to ask about something so useless. Since she killed Jenny, this promissory note is now null and void. And these 999 spirit stones, are she going to pay back? Monster replied that she had no money. She wouldn't be able to. Tion said that was even a pity. This was not the answer she wanted to hear at all. And Mirror, he needs her clothes and equipment. Tion took away her clothes and realized that there wasn't much to be gained from this. And 999 spirit stones, and how many noble families would he have to blackmail to make up for his losses? The monster started screaming that he was a pervert, and a real pervert at that. And since she had lost, he could kill her. But why did he need her clothes? She won't let that happen. Her body and soul belong to the demon god. If he dares to touch her, Tion said she's imagining too much. He doesn't care if she's a man or a woman. If she's a demon, he should destroy her. White light started to touch the monster case, and she was thinking when the thing was in her face. Tion turned to the law of 5 thunderstorms and ordered, "Kill this monster." The lightning immediately covered it completely and roasted it. But after her, she left behind a level 5 obsidian abyssin demonic core. Tion told the dragon that this core is his. Let him go and eat it. The dragon didn't refuse and thanked him. Tien then turned to Lisa and said that he had already dealt with that demon thing. But next time she would be better. But suddenly she saw that she was lying unconscious on the floor. Tien lifted her up and yelled for her to wake up. And she can't die. He still hopes that she will help him find the Xintian clan artifacts. He started slapping her face and telling her to stay awake. The fox came to her senses and said that if he kept hitting her, she would really die. Tion hugged her and said, "Great, she's awake." And now he would take her to the doctor. The fox was telling him to stop and let her go first. She doesn't need a doctor. She can recover if she is energized by her spiritual energy. And even serious wounds can be healed this way. Asked Tion. The fox replied that yes. It would be a good idea to find a hot spring. It would increase the efficiency of absorption. And just like when they first met, Tion said that she meant to take a bath together and everything would be fine. Soon Tion said that they hadn't found any hot springs. But the lake would do in case of emergency. But that's how much undressing is required? Maybe they'll leave at least the acceptable minimum of clothing. The fox replied that she just needed to heal her wounds. Tion asked her why she wasn't undressing. The fox said there was no need to undress. He could absorb the spiritual energy as it was. And now he could begin to radiate it. Tien asked, "Is that what it means?" The fox thought it was amazing. Such a huge flow of energy. In that case, how was he able to defeat that demoness? And the power of Zhong Tian is unbelievable. And such a powerful energy envelopes the whole body. It's intoxicating, and the pain slowly fades into the background. And he has this incredible aura. And it's mind-boggling. She can't miss it and immediately kissed him. The fox stuck it under the water and realized it wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough. And needed much more. Lisa came out like nothing had happened and said she was fine and fully recovered. Tien asked her, was she trying to kill him? The fox apologized and replied that his energy was incredibly seductive. She couldn't help herself. Tion was telling the dragon that he had eaten a level 5 demon core. It was time to work hard for it, No need to disappoint master. The dragon replied that he knew it. Free cheese only comes in a mousetrap. Tian asked Lissa, did she have to stay so close to him? The fox replied that it was so high up here, very scary. Suddenly, she felt the aura of an artifact. The fox told the guy that a similar aura emanates from him. And maybe it's one of the treasures they're looking for. Tian immediately sensed the money and asked, is she sure? But in the forest at this time, the hunters were chasing the elf princess Aurora. Aurora asked them why they were following him. What did they want from her? The hunter replied that elves are not often seen these days, and if you catch her and sell her on the black market, you can make a lot of money, and their band of wild bandits will be rich. Did she decide not to fight back? That makes them her enemies. She won't let them do that. Aurora was not afraid and called out the elf's call and used the moon butterflies and aimed them straight at the enemies. Are those insects? And that's what she calls an attack? What a disgusting thing to say. So many insects. And he hates that nonsense. Aurora used the moon curse and applied the weakening technique. Immediately afterward, the hunters began to become exhausted and turned into dead people. The hunter spoke out of pity that his hair was ruined, and now no one would look at him. And what kind of black magic is this? Make him give it all back. Aurora said it was all their fault, and by attacking the elves, they should think of the consequences beforehand. Bandit Elite Mark suddenly came and said that this was the elf clan's magic. But Jenna also said it was just debuff magic, nothing out of the ordinary. Mark replied that for elves, it's not bad enough, but she has a long way to go. Jenna turned to Aurora and said she had a good offer for her. She'll show them the way to the elf village and she won't kill her. How does she feel about that? Aurora replied that he wouldn't fall for it and let them now look down on the elves' mania. And she would make them pay for it and said she was a sissy. You don't want to use a skill her opponent already knows about. But Jenna used a spin and said that no matter how powerful magic is, if it can't touch her opponent, it's nothing. And so let her watch some real magic. Her whirlwind, like a sharp blade, destroys everything in its path. Just a moment, and she will end all resistance. Aurora felt that this was the first time she had ever left the village and already faced such a powerful opponent. She's so unlucky. Suddenly she wondered if she should use this technique. But suddenly everything changed in a second, and someone used the attack instead of her. Aurora asked, wondering what was going on. The hurricane had dissipated, and something must have fallen from the sky. The fox replied that was correct. The aura of the treasure is coming from her. Aurora realized at once that the appearance of these strange guys. All this was not good. Tian approached her and said that it wasn't that she was wearing a lot of clothes, but where could she hide the artifact? What was he talking about? Tian looked and asked in surprise, is it really hidden there? And looked at her breasts with his eyes. Jenna asked her ally if he had seen it. Her whirlwind just vanished into thin air. Mark replied that yes, and not only that, these two completely ignored the two top masters in the wild band of outlaws. Mark immediately used his huge sword and attacked, saying that he would show him now, and show them what the elite of their gang was. Jenna was also supportive and said that yes, people who dare to disparage magic are not worthy of life. They both attacked him from behind and decided not to leave him no chance. Tian turned around and said there was still no way they would shut their mouths. But suddenly both of them were surprised, and Tian asked them, couldn't they see that he was talking to a girl? And hadn't their mother taught them as children not to interrupt adults? Tian immediately repelled their attacks and said, what a nuisance they are. With a swing of his hand, he knocked them down. Tian ordered all outsiders to get out of here quickly. He's already very busy. Aurora asked, is it over? But after all, these two are extremely strong. The fox replied that it's not over yet. There is something else important. Tian decided to apply his mirror and told him to gather all the equipment and clothes. The mirror, like a vacuum cleaner, began to suck everything into itself and left no clothes or weapons behind. Aurora thought, this is something important, and it's to undress them. He had already undressed the others. It looked like it was her turn. Tian looked at her, and Aurora immediately felt a shiver. She told the guy to stay away from her and not to undress her. There's nothing to see here. It's the first time she's left the village, and she doesn't understand anything. Tian said he didn't intend to undress her. He's a decent man. Aurora asked him if he wasn't going to abuse her. Tian told her everything. Aurora asked, Xuantian's artifact? He really doesn't have such a valuable item. The fox replied, sensing his aura from her. There could be no mistake. Tian also said that she has quite a few curves, and such where valuables could be hidden, and have Aurora think again. Surely she hadn't eaten anything strange? Aurora answered that she hadn't. But they are elves, all drinking from a magical source. Tian asked, a magical source? What is it? Aurora replied that it's living water. And the elders say that it was because of this spring that their clan was born. And you just need to drink some living water, and any imperfections will leave him. The skin will become nourished and velvety. This water also lifts your spirits, and when people reach a certain age, they go to bathe in the spring. Anyone who bathes will give birth to a little elf. And so this spring is a shrine to their entire clan. Fox thought it must have something to do with the artifact. She drank the spring water, so she could feel the aura of the artifact from it. Tian also thought that this spring water would be a goodbye. Aurora said that it was actually the reason she came out of the forest. A few months ago, the monster had occupied their source. This monster does terrible things. It attacks with strange tentacles, and if it grabs him, it's impossible to fight any further. It's the nemesis of their clan, so she made her way out of the village to find those who could help deal with him. The two of them are incredibly strong, and the elves need them. But are they willing to help them? And said they would save everyone. And of course they would help. The fox looked over and saw that her master was so determined, and he seemed to have already thought of new schemes to make money. Tian said, such a precious source of life. This monster definitely cheapens it. On the way, Lissa asked, was the elf village really in such a gloomy place? Aurora replied that it was done for their protection. As soon as they went deep inside, they would immediately find the elf village. The fox suddenly asked her why she was looking at Zhong Tian the whole way. Aurora replied that she didn't do it on purpose. It's just that they elves, such creatures. She had never been this close to a man. Very curious. If Zhong Tian walks into the village like this, he'll have everyone's attention. Couldn't he change his clothes? The fox asked with surprise. Disguise? She wants to dress her in women's dresses? Tian replied that he had agreed to help after all. There was no need to do it secretly. And that's just the way he is. If the elves like to gawk, let them gawk. When Aurora saw the white light, she said they had come. And this is the village of the elves. And beautiful views. They were immediately met by the elves and told that Princess Aurora had returned. And they asked her who the two men were. Aurora replied that they were her saviors. And the saviors she brought, they're the good ones. This time, they can bring back the fountain of life. The elf asked, but why is that one over there so different from them? His chest is so flat. Tian was suddenly surprised and replied that he was a man. Of course he has a flat chest. The elves were surprised and asked in amazement, man, is this what a man looks like? They immediately started yelling that there was a man here. And the princess returned with a man to the clan. Aurora blushed and realized there was going to be a commotion. Everyone immediately gathered in one place and asked, and they'd like to see what the legendary man really looks like. And this is a once-in-a-century event. They certainly can't miss it. All the elves surrounded him and said it was a human male. And he looks so different from the elves. And it turns out that men are amazing creatures. Just looking at them makes you blush. And why don't they let him live in the village with them? Fox tells him not to be shy. She can't believe he's still popular. Tian replied that he must have been hasty. This is really an outstanding event. The dragon showed up and told the guy he was a real pain in the ass, and deliberately brought him to such a nice place. Tian asked him what he was doing here. The dragon replied that it was to look at these beautiful maidens. This place is a true paradise on earth. And what beautiful and huge eyes. The elves started saying that there was something big and long sticking out of the man's body. And this is the unique ability of men? It's just unbelievable. The dragon asked the girls if they wanted to ride him. He's so strong he could ride all of them. The elf said this thing looks gorgeous and majestic. Can you even ride it? The second of the elves also said that there are so many amazing things about men. They still have so much to learn. Tian got very angry and asked Lissa if he killed this reverse dragon. Would the dragon's sword disappear? Lissa replied that she thought it would. Here Aurora turned to her sister and said that she apologized for bringing the man without her permission. Queen Lovie of the elves said that no human has set foot in elven territory for 5,000 years. I can't believe that this ancestral taboo is broken today. But since they're here to help the elves, and immediately wiped her drool away seeing the guy in front of her. Aurora said that was wonderful. She knew that Lovey would be the smartest among all of them. Tion also said that her sister doesn't look very serious. She's drooling on him, Fox asked, didn't she? Lovey told Aurora. Why doesn't she show her guest around the village? She's going to talk to this man about how to bring back the fountain of life. And Tianyu said he would only go with her. The fox was surprised and saw that this elf queen looked like a real whore. She purposely went alone with him. And it's not like she's going to do anything to Jun Tion. Tion told her there was no need to discuss tactics. Was there? Just have her take him to the source, and they would destroy the beast's lair. Lovey replied that you shouldn't get too carried away. These beasts are very difficult to deal with. They would have to go to her room and talk it over, and he must have a lot of fire in him. Entering the room said that there were too many people outside now, which made her endure for a long time, and now it was just the two of them. Tien said she had gotten what she wanted. Now they could talk about the return of the fountain of life. Lovey said there's no need to hurry. They have more important things to do. He's got a lot of fire in him, and maybe he'll blow off some steam on her. Lovey said she didn't know why, but ever since she saw him, she was in love with him, is pounding furiously. It's like they were made for each other. And maybe they won't waste any time. She's sure he can't wait either. Tion was confused at this moment and didn't even know what to say. Lovey asked him why he wasn't doing anything. Is it possible that he prefers to be passive? And in that case, you're always welcome. She didn't waste any time and immediately tore off his clothes. Lovey said it's amazing. Such exquisite musculature, like a work of art. It's intoxicatingly stunning. And such a sight, she has the good fortune to enjoy only her. She's really excited, and she's going to start first. But suddenly Tion put up his hand and stopped her, and called her an easygoing girl. Lovey asked him, doesn't he want to enjoy himself? Tion didn't answer, and pushed her to the side. Tion asked, what good is that? He is a man of seriousness. He doesn't have time for this, and let him slap her again, and his spanking made her feel so good. This is the first time he's heard such a request. She's also a pervert. Lovey told him not to talk like that. This is the first time she is experiencing such excitement, and the elves are so beautiful. But they must stay here, in this little village, for the rest of their lives, guarding the source of life. But there is no truth to the enjoyment of male love at all. It's all because of the fountain of life. She's trapped in here. She wants to see the outside world too. She has a duty to protect her people. Tion said she really looks pathetic. Lovey replied that since he felt sorry for her, he should come to her. He was the only one who could comfort her now. Tion said that he didn't want to. Suddenly, Lovey replied that she had a very interesting thing. If he behaves well, that topaz will be his. Tion just immediately showed his strength and skills, and said of course, he would also exhaust her today. At this time, things started to feel different in this house, and the magical energy was just coming out of this house into the street. The elf was saying that this big, long thing turned out to be a big sword. They had no idea such amazing things existed. The dragon told them it was nothing, and asked why so abruptly. He could become any human or animal who could touch the sword, even the ghostly servant succubus, and even a level 5 obsidian abyssin monster. The elf suddenly told him that he didn't seem to be having much fun. The fox looked at all this, and she felt very ashamed of the little green dragon. And she suddenly wondered how Tion was doing with the elf queen. But looking at the house, she saw a huge aura spilling out of this room. At that, there is some sort of popping sound. But what's going on in there? But perhaps they are fighting. Does the queen want to test him? In this tiny room, what kind of exciting battle is going on, she thought. But apparently the queen dared to become Zhong Tian's rival. And the elf queen must have great strength. The guys who had been beaten up by Tion came to the wild bandits camp. One of them turned to the captain and said that their squad had been the strongest in the area for many years, and he'd never seen his brothers so angry before. It's just a damn shame, and this guy was violent, and the captain has to react, and he begs him to defend the dignity of the Thieves' Guild, and let him chop this guy to pieces. The leader of the wild brigands Orcus said, well, what can you do? You have to act normal. And do they see anything wild about themselves? But Jenna came in and told the boss it wasn't their fault. He's just too violent. Not only did he hit them, But he took their equipment, and even her favorite leopard print leather jacket was off. He saw her whole body. He's a pervert. If he didn't die, she would be disgraced. Orcus realized that Gina was the flower of their wild thieves. He'd never seen her naked, even as captain, and she'd been stripped by some stranger. Ginny said the lowly boy had now gone to the elves. He should have been taken to the elves' village by now. Orcus marveled at the fact that even the elves accepted him. And this was his dream. After all, he immediately came down from the tree and said what he had decided. Orcus showed his evil look and said they were going to go and kill him now and avenge their boys. In the elf village, Aurora walked into a room and was saying to her sister, "Something is wrong. There is a large number of trespassers here, and the bandits must have followed her trail and found their way into the forest." And they had almost reached the village. At that moment, she saw the picture of Tion spanking her sister. Aurora blushed heavily at this point, and closing the door said she apologized to them. Lovey told her sister not to misunderstand her. She was testing how strong this person really was. It's an exchange of experience. Orcus tells his men that he wants them to be on guard. They are here to avenge Jinna's shame, and let them not be confused by the beauty of the elves. But suddenly on the way, they met the legendary elves. Are these people that came also men? And why does his head have such a big root? And they all have weird hair. They don't make the heart beat faster at all. The elf told them that if they were trespassers, let them take one more step, and then you don't have to blame them. Orcus was immediately surprised and started yelling how fucking awesome their legs are. This is really something. The elves really live up to their name. Orcus told his men that they would take them to their camp and thought what the captain was saying seemed strange to her. And hadn't the captain come to avenge her? Orcus took his boys and undressed and threw themselves at them. But then Lovey came in and said they were vile creatures. And how dare they beat the elves? She didn't play with them and used Moonrise. The attack was so strong that the guys couldn't handle it and lost. Lovey said they are all stinking creatures, and people like them should always die. It will be easier on this earth without them. But Lovey saw the most important one left and told him that if he left, she might consider keeping them alive. Orcus couldn't take his eyes off her and saw that she was so beautiful, and even her scolding is so charming. And this is what a real elfess looks like in his imagination. And it's the same as stealing a book from his collection. And suddenly Tion came in and said he saw some familiar faces. And she came to get back at him? Or does she think she gave him too little gear and wants more people to give him their gear? Jenny immediately said it was him. He did this to her. And he also stole his little brother's light giant sword. Orcus looked at it and said that it was him, and he did what he wanted to do first. And he couldn't accept it. Orcus is pouncing on him, screaming that this was all supposed to be his, and he's about to blow it to smithereens. But Lovey decided to stick up for the guy and kicked him in the leg and told him to get out of here and called him a bug and asked him if he was allowed to touch him. Orcus was frightened and realized that she was very strong. And is there an S-class among elves? Tion asked the queen, "What is she doing? This guy is insulting him. He'll sort it out himself. And he has a lot of hair. And if they shave them all off?" Lovey replied to him that he is the man she, the elf queen, is in love with. How could she let someone attack him? This marvelous power of his should not be wasted on such trash. It should be used for something more worthy. Everyone was surprised at this moment, and Tion definitely realized that she was a pervert. Orcus at this moment felt that he was a wild and fierce man who would not waver before her. But she had fallen in love with this lecherous devil. Lovey said that one man Zhong Tion would be enough in the elf village, and ordered the elven warriors that it was time to go back to the base, and ordered the others to take these guys back to where they came from. Orcus suddenly said that since these elves were so heartless, he would show no mercy, and ordered his guys that they needed to take some with them. Jenny and the rest of the guys started fighting them, but the elves weren't so bad, and immediately cut a few guys down with their swords. Lovey told the enemy that it was all because of his attack. He had interfered with her and Zhong Tion. They were so close, and they could have done so much. And he's really nasty, and it was his fault for spoiling her pleasure. He committed an unforgivable crime. Orcus replied that she needed a real man for his charms to wear off. He's better than him, just because he's a little late, but that's how she feels about him. Lovey said he was nothing compared to him. She should get rid of him as soon as possible. and then she could quickly go on to spend more time with Tion. She immediately used her solar attack technique, and pointing at the enemy told him to die. Akris replied that she must be joking. Who does she think he is? The leader of the thieves' camp. Okris decided to act with his bare hands and open his eyes after the attack, saying he could stop it. He fended off her attack and said they are both S-class, and it's unclear who else will win. Lovi was surprised and told him that blind confidence is not a good thing. Okris said it's not blind confidence. Here she will see. He'll show her his wild punches. He immediately used his strength and raised a rock above him and attacked her with a savage fist. But Lovi wasn't surprised by anything, and she too applied a high-level skill, but suddenly saying it wouldn't work. Applying a few seals, she chopped all the stones into small pieces so they wouldn't touch her. Akris realized that all mages had an Achilles heel, the fear of hand-to-hand combat face-to-face. And the savage blow was just a distraction to get closer to her. And then she would definitely be defenseless. Okris got very close, and at the moment of impact said she lost, and used a boar's growl. Lovi couldn't dodge after such a blow and received a fist on her chest. Lovi suddenly started screaming that he was dying. But then she suddenly showed her normal side and said he was falling for it. Does he think mages can't do close combat? Okris thought. Where did her voice come from? But the queen at the time of her attack said that unfortunately she was the exception and applied the sacred light dance of the moon wheel. The attack was so strong and stealthy that he didn't have time to dodge and took everything on his body. Lovi said that even if they are both S-class, there is still a difference between strong and weak. He has only just reached the S-class threshold, except she's at the top of the S-class. And in this fight, he's not even her equal. So she decided to address the others by saying that she had already defeated their leader, and they all have 5 seconds to disappear from his sight. The queen doesn't have time to waste on bugs like them, and if they prevented her before her meeting with Zhong Tian, none of them would survive. The enemies started to run away in fear and said, what was the point of them having a leader who lost? Lovi told Aurora that it looked like their girls were hurt, and have her heal them with a flickering butterfly. Aurora didn't refuse the queen and used her healing technique on the other girls. The elf suddenly said it was a healing, shimmering butterfly. It was beautiful. Her body was like fluff for a moment, and it feels like she has a constant stream of heat running through her. And it doesn't hurt anymore, and that feels really good. After that, Lovi said that it looked like she was done, and asked Tian to go back to the room and continue. But when she turned around, she saw that Mr. Tian was no longer there. She wondered where they had disappeared to. Okris was saying at the time of departure that it was a very good thing the guy was fast, or he wouldn't have made it back in time, and he couldn't believe that there was a peak S-level individual among the elves. They're really unlucky. The guy told the captain to keep his spirits up. This setback is nothing. And at least they figured out the route to the elf village, and the new slaves from their camp have not yet had time to leave. If they return safely, they will sell the slaves, and then he'll go to the black market and hire some S-level fighters or higher, and come back for revenge. And he's sure they can take over the elf village and make them all bow down. But then Tian appeared on the path and said, here is a thief. It's true that a dog can't stop eating shit, and the elf queen gave them a chance. And yet they have the nerve to think such things. The fox also joined the conversation and said they followed his trail to the village, didn't they? And he came to take revenge on him. But then he can't just sit back and watch. Orcus said he had pride. How dare he act so arrogant in front of him? If he couldn't defeat the queen, does he think he can't be defeated? Akris jumped on him and screamed that he was his prey, and it was his own fault. Tien slapped him immediately and asked him who he was pretending to be. Didn't he give him permission? Tian then slapped him once more that even Okris couldn't dodge and rolled over for the impact. Akris said he was careless. He's really something, and it looks like defeating Mark and Gina was no accident. He'll have to come up with something real to deal with him too. Okris suddenly wondered, does he really hurt so much because he is hurt? He can't even tell what he's doing. This is weird. He must defeat him by any means necessary. The guy gained strength and said he would show him the best techniques of the strongest man in the wild thieves. And a wild lion, a mighty tiger, an exploding bison. Tian didn't panic and waved his sword and told him that he was too weak, and he would die from this sword, and immediately cut him. Okris was surprised and wondered how that was possible. Tian looked at them and said that they were all just gnats, Let them all attack together. But Tian saw that they were idle, and pointing his sword, he sheathed it around the enemies' necks. The sword understood its master's order, and did it all for him, cutting them all to pieces. Tian told Lisa to go with him to the camp of those thieves. Lisa asked, was it to free the captured slaves? Tian replied, that's right, and he wants to take all their stolen money into his pocket. Jenna was in the woods at this point, and saw that she was in such a hurry that she had fallen behind the group. But everything was strange to her, and she couldn't figure out what this place was, and she got a strange feeling. But suddenly tentacles appeared in front of her face. They tied her up from different limbs. Jenna was frightened and didn't understand what this was even about. She felt like it was really tight on her. It gripped her so tight. She can't even move, and it's hard to breathe. But it's a monster with tentacles. And why does she always get such nasty enemies? And suddenly, everything started to go wrong, and she felt that she couldn't hold on any longer. And I thought, how could such a monster appear in this place? And it's too embarrassing. But the monster was rejoicing at this moment, and saying that he caught it. And it looks very tasty. Jenna was very ashamed at that moment, because she was caught in this monster's tentacles. And the body was growing weaker and weaker, and she can't fight back. She can only watch as those tentacles move all over her body. She can't do anything. The monster said she was unconscious. And now, he would be damned. He slowly began to bring her up to his mouth and tell her she was appetizing. Afterward, he said he was fed up, and it feels great. He is honored to be a part of his body, and suddenly he decided to give it a try, and suddenly started to improve. And after taking control of Jenny's body, he said this body is not bad. Lovey was looking into the forest at this point and said there were unusual energy fluctuations. Wasn't that near the fountain of life? Or maybe Zhong Tian ran to the source in a hurry. But in fact, at that moment, she was imagining something else altogether. And she saw the monster tying Tian with its tentacles. She suddenly felt funny and said that they should go and save Tian. But Aurora replied to her sister that they'd better prepare themselves before going there. These tentacle monsters are their natural enemies. Lovey said that these tentacle monsters are certainly strong. She will save her man. The other elves shouted that right too. We must save the man. Nothing should happen to this man. Going to the forest, they searched for Tian and shouted, calling him a man. Lovey was also worried and asked where Tian was. She came to save him, or she'll be worried about him. And how will she be without sharing the experience with him? She wants to do it again with him. Tentacles suddenly appeared and slowly crept up behind her to grab her. She didn't have time to dodge and fell into the trap. The monster was saying at that moment that she was caught. And it's the female elf queen. And if they ate it, they could immediately break through to the 5th rank. They were monster cubs. Are they trying to overpower her with such small tentacles? Isn't that ridiculous? The queen used her powers and let a current flow through the monster that seeped into its body points. But the others weren't left out either, and she dealt with them too. After that, Lovey said she was ugly and too weak. But suddenly she was surprised and said it can't be. They are only cubs, but there are too many of them here. And if they go on like this, they won't succeed. One of the elves realized that she was caught. And once those tentacles formed, she would have a hard time getting free. And she doesn't want to be eaten by that slippery tentacle monster and destroy it at once before she loses. Aurora also realized that she had been too hasty, and she's surrounded by tentacles. And she is surrounded by tentacles. But Zhong Tian is the one she brought to the elf village. And if he's in danger, it's her duty to save him. But suddenly everything changed, and she thought it was happening to her. And if it happens in a place like this, how can they help the queen find a man? The monster told her it was useless to resist. This is mimic territory, and soon they'll take over their village too. And then all the elves would become their cattle. And one of the monsters told Aurora to become part of it. But Lovey wouldn't let them treat them like that, and crushing one of them with her heel, glared menacingly at them. The monster's kid saw it and thought, what happened to her? And why their brother was blown to pieces. The queen told them that they had not yet settled old scores for capturing the fountain of life. And now they're staring at their village? The monster replied that there was nothing wrong with it. That idiot underneath it is just gagging. But the queen said that wouldn't work and immediately used her lightning attack. Aurora walked up to her sister and apologized to her that they were only slowing her down. And they have become a burden to her sister when she thinks about him the most. What is she talking about? How can it be a burden? She is the queen of the elves. and her most important duty is to protect them. But the queen actually thought he was more important. And it's weird, but she feels like she should be. But suddenly a monster appeared in her path and said that it was no wonder so many children suddenly killed. So it was the elf queen herself, and they showed great enthusiasm. He asked, "Is this the elven campaign?" The queen replied that she thought they were fighting Zhong Tian because of the fluctuating energies, and just she took over an unpleasant body. And what a waste of feeling. And she had another piece of advice for him. He must watch his words when he speaks to the queen, and if she got angry, it would turn them into fried octopus. Lovey didn't play around with it and used her seal and pointed it at the enemy. The monster realized that she needed to do the right thing. What was he supposed to do now? So she decided to use the protective sphere. After a strong attack from her, Monster tells her that it was a powerful recoil. She's hurting him with that act. And if it wasn't for regeneration, he would be in trouble. The monster asked, how could his words make her so angry? And it looks like he was right. She was really on a roll. The queen said he was an inferior organism and asked him what he knew about love. The monster replied that only the weak need love. They, the mimics, don't need it. He just needs to know her weaknesses. The monster didn't waste his time and released some spit into the queen's bodies. Lovey initially didn't understand and asked, is this his trump card? And what was so good about this sticky liquid? But suddenly, she started to think that she really wants Mr. Tian, and she only gives him 5 stars. The monster said there would be a price to pay for underestimating it. This is no ordinary slime, and rather, it's a ruse that he specifically designed to deal with them elves. And it dissolves her clothes. And suddenly the queen looked at her clothes and saw that they were slowly disappearing. Liwa got scared and said her stockings were starting to dissolve. And the tentacle clan's techniques are really nasty. And it's just that this embarrassing look of hers that's preventing Jun Tian from seeing him right now. And she's really sorry about that. Monster said she looks so embarrassed she's blushing and shaking. And it won't be a minute before all her clothes dissolve. The man suddenly said they were all women, and no woman can be shameless enough to fight with her head, and the elves have no chance of winning. And now, let it help her some more. Again, she spat her liquid right on top of her, and said acid spray, family shot. The queen couldn't dodge it, and was back in that strange liquid. Lovey said she hates it, and too much of that sticky stuff. And gradually the clothes started to eat away too. Aurora also said that the clothes disappear, and the body begins to tremble. And how can one fight when she is restrained by something like that? Jenna says she's just trying her luck, and he can't take it anymore. And then she won't waste her time, and let the existence of the elves become legend today, and unleashed her tentacles right at them. Lovey was surprised and couldn't believe that so many tentacles had split. And Aurora thought too, but the queen didn't let that happen, and releasing a sunbeam applied the sacred light dance of the moon wheel, and snapped her tentacles into 2 pieces. When Aurora saw this, she was proud of her sister, and this is what an elf queen looks like. Jen also looked on in surprise and wondered what had just happened, and why is she still fighting calmly. And according to the information she had gathered in her previous experience with the elves, this is a race of naive and extremely shy people. There's no way she could withstand this attack. And it wasn't like this before when they fought her. What did she have to endure during this time? The queen asked what's the matter. She seems very surprised, doesn't she? Her despicable tactics may have threatened her somewhat before, but these are different times. And after in-depth academic exchanges with Jun Tian, she would be completely promoted. And her small stage no longer limited her. And she doesn't care if she's wrapped in tentacles, clothes corroded by slime, or not. It doesn't hurt as much as if Jun Tian's hand slapped her again and again, and it takes such courage to make a man feel uncomfortable. It was the most beautiful experience of her life. Jenna blushed and said, shame on her. And this is how she imagines a pure spirit? She's just an embarrassment to the elves. And sticking her tentacles under the ground, she asked her, doesn't she like to be beaten? And then she would make her happy. Seeing the tentacles in front of her, Jenna yelled that they were giant tentacles, and it wouldn't work a second time. But the queen wasn't scared and immediately cut her tentacles. She asked her, did she want to fight Zhong Tian with such a flimsy attack? She certainly doesn't deserve it, and the one who can please the king. And that's definitely only Shun Shun. Jenna found it unacceptable and even over the top. But what a brazen woman she was. What kind of man could drive an elven queen so crazy? Aurora had also noticed that Zhong Tian was so close to the queen, and how envious to hear and see that. And I even wonder, how does it feel to hold his hand? The queen said her tricks no longer work on her, and now she can stop holding back. The elves and their ugly people today, she would put an end to. The queen wasted no time and immediately set out to attack the enemy. Jenna realized that she was at least a level 5 beast, and she dared to look down on her. Jenna decided to use her powers against her, but thought her power was too great, and it was best to avoid confrontation. But the queen dodged her attack and realized that the enemy wanted to escape. But she wouldn't let that happen, and that blow just cut her. The queen started chasing her and said that she definitely couldn't escape. Meanwhile, on the other side in the wild bandit camp, Tian came to rescue the prisoners and cut the bars with his sword. The elf asked him, is he their new master? They will be very obedient, just asking him not to beat them. They can sell them like the last cattle, and they are also sold to the maid store for fun, to become a tool of income for the owner, or given to princes and chiefs to use as sex toys. Or does the master want to keep them around and gradually change them to suit his taste? The fox thought at once why these slaves are so crazy, and what kind of torment they went through to become like this. And what is Zhong Tian going to do with them? Fox suddenly thought that these slaves must be worth a lot, and hoped he wouldn't sell them. Tian immediately told them that they were now free. Let them go home quickly. The elf asked, she didn't miss here? Is master really letting them go home? Tian replied, that's right. And of course she loves money, but he wouldn't take such dishonestly earned money. The elf thanked their master and said they would never forget his kindness. And as of today, he is their new parent. If they met again, they would do anything to repay their master. And after Tian took all the money from the band of robbers, Zhong Tian was not satisfied. The fox asked him what's wrong. What's he looking at? Did he forget something important? Tian replied that yes, he had. He forgot the most important thing because such a huge camp is just idle. It's such a waste. Tian suddenly said that maybe they would take him away. The fox was surprised and asked, is he serious? He used his powers and said, 1,000-year-old mirror. The queen then went to the fountain of life and was greatly disappointed at what she saw. Lovi said, how dare they pollute their holy source of life like that? This is unforgivable. All of a sudden, she starts yelling at Jenna to come out and show herself, and she knows she's hiding here. The queen said she would kill her today. Jenna suddenly came out of the spring and asked her with surprise, and she fears it won't be that easy. And this source of life can give new life to the elven races. But this magic also works on other female creatures, and that's why their tentacle tribe is ready to take over at any cost. The queen said they were fools, and how long have they been watching them? Jenna replied, that's exactly what it is. With the fountain of life, the tentacles can grow, and one day they will be the greatest demon clan in the world. And the elves have such treasures, but they don't know how to use them. What a waste. He'll be theirs for sure. Lovi said that the fountain of life is not what turns creatures into fertilization machines. And this is the holy relic that brought the elves into existence 5,000 years ago. This is the origin of elven life. This is what they believe in. She's a superficial, vulgar creature, and she'll never get it. Jenna screamed that she's not an elf, and her beliefs are none of her business. They immediately ordered the tentacle children to come out and let them tear that arrogant woman apart in front of her. The monster children immediately came out onto the ground and headed for the queen with their tentacles. But the queen was not afraid and used her sacred moon barrier. The monsters couldn't reach her and just hit the defense. Jenna asked with surprise, a protective barrier? It's useless. With such a strong and intense attack, her barrier wouldn't last long. And if the barrier is interrupted, the queen said, seeming to misunderstand, and this barrier is not designed to protect against her attacks. And she said she's going to kill her tonight. And she promises her that she'll kill her without blinking an eye. The queen summoned all her powers of the sky and used her solar attack. Jenna wondered and thought what's going on. And what was that huge magical formation? Aurora looked and saw that her sister would finally do it. The strongest magic of the elves. And she would finally be able to unleash all her power. Tian also saw and said that the elf queen refused to take him to the fountain of life. But fighting a tentacle monster while he's gone? And that's certainly not good. The queen said that if magic isn't violent enough, it's pointless. She's the only elf here. She can work her magic with impunity. Lovey said she was definitely going to die, and channeled powerful magic right into her. But Jenna said she wasn't afraid of that kind of thing, and let her see her block it. But things didn't go according to her plan, and Jenna started screaming that no, and they could negotiate. But the queen didn't stop, and with her attack she boiled all the tentacles. The queen used protection too, so she wouldn't get hit by anything. But Aurora said that the sorrow of the moon is the most destructive elven magic. But it's also very taxing on the power of the mind. When performing this trick, the caster falls into a state of extreme weakness, and the sister stakes her success or failure on this move. But whether she succeeds or not, her sister is in the greatest danger now. She must get to her as soon as possible. After the attack, the queen said she told her she was going to be killed today. And today she won. She stumbled and had already pitched to the ground out of helplessness. But Tion managed to come in time and caught her. He asked her if she was all right. The queen felt there was an intoxicating touch to it, and it could not be mistaken. It was her man who had come. Tion said that she did well. Destroy the lair of tentacle monsters alone. Lovey replied that if he hadn't had a deep academic exchange with her, there was no way she could have surpassed the tentacle monster's vile movements. And it was all thanks to him. The fox was suddenly surprised and asked, "Do they have to stay in that position to talk?" The queen asked what's wrong with that. She even likes it. And right now, she is very weak, and she needs to hug Tion and rest for a while to recover. Tion looked in her eyes and asked where she was going, but the queen asked him back. Tion replied that it wasn't even bad. Lovey said that as soon as she defeated the tentacle monster, it appeared. It must be the moon god's gift to the queen, and if she didn't hold on to him, it just wouldn't be right. She couldn't help herself and kissed Tion. The fox watched and thought, what is she doing? Doesn't he belong to her? But suddenly Aurora came and asked her sister if she was okay. She had come to save her. She had used too much magic. But looking at her sister, she realized she was a little late to the party. The lake was still standing still, and suddenly tentacles came out of it. Suddenly, a level 6 magical beast appeared and said that they were rejoicing too soon. And this wasn't the end yet. The monster said this spell was supposed to wear her out, right? And now it's his turn. The monster said that the ants of their elven tribe were the end of them. Aurora replied that it was a level 6 beast. Is this really the real boss of the tentacles? The fox also said that it had a powerful demonic aura. This demonic beast is unusual. The queen turned around and said, what a pain in the ass. And why does she always have someone in her way? And the queen is not satisfied. And how dare he interfere with her? But then Tion put his hand in front of her and said that she was tired, and he would take care of this guy. The queen was greatly surprised and thought it was so manly. And Zhong Tion, that's a legendary confession. That's just great. He is definitely in love with her. Tion noticed her face and immediately realized that something strange was going on in her head. The monster said he's level 6, and he could bitch about flirting in his presence. But how dare he fight him? Why is he being disrespectful? The monster didn't let him act like that, and immediately attacked. But Tion used his strength and stopped his tentacles at the last moment. They immediately shattered into small pieces. What if he didn't care about him? The monster started screaming in pain and crying upon seeing his tentacles. Aurora wondered and thought, what did Zhong Tion just do? She didn't see anything. This is just amazing, and he really is the man she was looking for. It's a truly remarkable sight. Tion said that this fountain of life contains the treasure he is looking for, and the monster is really bothering him, so he'd better just get out. The guy used his strongest technique and pointed all of his swords straight at the monster from the sky. The monster said it's only a weak spell. He's not afraid of it at all, and let him watch him block it out. But suddenly, he saw the swords begin to tear his tentacles apart. The monster thought, how did this happen? Why is it so powerful? After all, he is a level 6 monster, 1 in a million. But now the monster has decided that it doesn't matter. His regeneration abilities are unrivaled. And as long as he could breathe, the monster asked the guy what he wanted. Tion replied that the evil demons should be destroyed. The monster was scared and asked the guy to stop so they could talk quietly. But Tion replied that it wouldn't happen and directed a continuous windy thunder at him. The monster said it scared him to death. He thought it would be incredible power, and little balls of energy like that They certainly wouldn't kill him, and as long as there was a piece of him left, he could survive. But before his eyes, everything changed abruptly, and the balloons turned into one big one. The queen watched from the sidelines and said it was grand, and such a powerful technique. Aurora also realized that he was too strong, and a level 6 magic monster is simply powerless. It was as if someone was protecting them from the outside world, as if there was a paradise outside, and Tion's strength is beyond imagination. The fox looked at the lake and said that the uterus of the tentacle monsters had disappeared. Aurora also said that even the polluted spring had come back to life, and even the queen was delighted. Lovey thought that if only June could unleash all that raging energy into her, how great would that be? Tien stood over the water and told someone to get out, and it was time for them to meet. A ball appeared from the water, which immediately turned red in color and stood right in front of Tian. Char had said 5,000 years, and she had finally waited for him. She thought she would never have a day without being awakened, and suggested to the guy that they should become one. But suddenly, Tian was surprised at the last moment. Char said that this treasure is called the spirit of the giant sun, and it can provide the bearer with endless yang, energy, and endurance, and explores an irresistible attraction for the opposite sex. The abilities of this spiritual treasure are extraordinary, and let him definitely take advantage of it. Tian suddenly sighed and felt that he was about to make a breakthrough. And this is the effect of merging elemental fragments? It's even really something, but this spirit of the sun sounds out of the ordinary, and an irresistible attraction from the opposite sex. Is the treasure really that good, he thought? The fox said that she was so happy that she was able to help June obtain the spiritual treasure. She's very precious when she's around him, which meant that what he was looking for was indeed in the fountain of life. What a marvelous fate. But how could she help him? Tian looked at them and saw that the two of them were so excited. Was it because of the giant sun spirit? Suddenly, he saw that the queen had disappeared from her seat. He thought, where did she go? And he realized that she was the most sensual. Tian felt immediately that he had a bad feeling. And the elf queen, she's not going to do that, is she? The queen went to the forest and thought, why is there such a perfect man? He is so handsome, but at the same time so strong. And remembering how he was fighting now, her heart is racing, and she just can't stop it. Tien went over to the girls to see how they were doing. But Aurora asked him, the first thing he does after a big fight is come to them? Isn't that too direct? The fox said that helping him find the spiritual treasure was what she was supposed to do. There was no need to thank her. Aurora told him he was the hero of the village. Only she needs to repay him. And she asks him not to pity her. Lissa said that they've been together for so long that she doesn't know how she really feels. And now, they're finally going to take that step, and she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The fox was screaming at Tian to do it now and act. Tian replied that he understood what they wanted. He would do his best to satisfy them. Only, he needs to deal with the most difficult person first. And pointed his finger at the queen. The inner voice said that the elf queen was the type that was extremely excitable. And now she was under the influence of the giant sun spirit. And it's just unbelievable lust. She's incredibly horny right now. If she can't quickly extinguish the fire inside her, she will explode and die. And now he's the only one who can save her now. Everything depends on him. Tian said that if she hadn't met him, she wouldn't be like this. And it's all his responsibility. A man can't run away. And taking off his clothes said he would help her. The others just blushed at this point and thanked him for it. And they will die in this life without regret. Tian approached her and said that he didn't think this was the most convenient place to solve their problem, and suggested that she go somewhere else, stepping inside the Chinchio Queen's mirror. The queen thought, what kind of place is this? Is this heaven on earth? And why is June standing naked in front of the queen? And that's too much of a shock for the queen, isn't it? Tien said he can see. She's recovered a little. She's on fire. She needs help to save her life. The queen asked with surprise, save a life? She can do it. Is he here to reward her? Then she won't be polite. On the other side, Lissa asked, what are those two doing there? Aurora replied that she didn't know much about it. She had never encountered it either. Suddenly, clothes and strange liquids started flying out of the mirror. Aurora was surprised at this and couldn't understand. She took the clothes and said that they were her sister's black stockings. The fox said that not only are the black stockings here, the elf queen's dress is here too. They are together in the same space, and they are both naked. Aurora said they should have started by now by this point, and it looks like it's going to be a fierce battle. This turmoil is unnerving. The fox replied that she had kissed Zhong Tian several times to absorb his spiritual power, but she had never made such deep contact before. But suddenly she came to her senses and said, "What is this envy? She can't just sit here and wait. And she has to be braver." The fox gathered her strength and went through the mirror. But Aurora was surprised and said she was the only one left, but she's too ashamed to go there of her own free will. Suddenly, she started hearing voices like someone telling Fox to throw at him with all his might. He can handle it and he won't lose. Aurora blushed heavily at this point and said that she couldn't wait any longer. She had never felt so excited before. She must pull herself together and take a chance. Aurora gathered her strength and said her entrance. She entered without any hesitation and shouted to Tian that she was entering. But she was greatly surprised and was saying that it was so huge and it was just a sight. Aurora said that she couldn't imagine that there was such a huge space in this narrow entrance. And this man, Zhong Tian, is simply incredible, and said that she had to find them. Zhong Tian had done so much for her. She should repay him and follow the queen's example. But when I saw the barrier in front of me, I said, "This is it. That's Zhong Tian's aura." But suddenly she stopped and thought that maybe they were celebrating their victory. She sat next to me and watched without taking her eyes off. And she was so interested in just watching. But what would happen if she joined in too? But suddenly Tian came out and asked, "Is she scared?" Then don't be, this is not the right place for her. He opened the mirror of 1,000 autumns to save her sister. But Aurora said no, she would not leave. She would stay and repay him. Just like her sister and little fox, Tian realized that the power of the giant sun essence was so terrifying, and he was afraid that she was in for an eventful time. After a while, the Elfies came to the bowl of battle, and one of them said that it was the fountain of life that became like this. What kind of battle happened last night? It's unbelievable. But suddenly one of the elves saw the portal and asked what was that thing. She had never seen it before, but the elf replied that to say so, they had not yet met either the queen or Princess Aurora. The elf asked, "They didn't get sucked into that interdimensional passageway, did they? We need someone to go in there and take a look." One suddenly replied that it could be dangerous. But the elf in the group said she would go. And during last night's battle, she was only in the queen's way. Now, she's going to make up for lost time. She hoped the queen was okay. And without their queen, the elves were doomed. She was not afraid and went through the portal without fear. The elves were asking her what had happened and what had she seen? Was it really an interdimensional passage? Why had she gotten so agitated that she had fallen to her knees? The elf looked and said, "It's so delightful. It's a passageway to paradise." The elves asked her, "What is heaven?" Had she gone crazy? "And where are the queen and the princess? Did she see them?" The elf answered that the queen and princess were there, as well as a very handsome man. They were inside. The queen came out and said that she was so tired, and Zhong Tian was too good. Her whole body ached, but the sensation is simply excellent. Aurora suddenly came out and felt pain too, and she feels like her back is about to break. And it's an amazing feeling. It hurts a little bit, but she's so happy. She can keep precious memories like last night with Jun Tian. She feels like it was worth it. And behind them came out Tien and Fox, who said he was so awesome she was dying. Tien said she just can't walk. She's exaggerating. The fox replied that it wasn't an exaggeration, because she is very sensitive. The queen suddenly told Lissa not to try to dominate him all the time, and in a few minutes it would be his turn to carry her. Last night was the night she made the most effort. The elves suddenly started shouting that Her Majesty the Queen and Her Highness were safe and sound, and the tentacle monster had been destroyed, and they had even found a human. The elf asked the others what they thought was different about this man, and they told her that everything had, and he seems to have become even more handsome. But suddenly an elf came and told the queen that something terrible had happened. The tentacle monster had been destroyed, but they seemed to have lost the blessing of the source of life. The queen said that the water had indeed lost its effect. How could this have happened? And it was all her fault for being so busy last night. How dare she neglect the fountain of life? And if they don't have the blessing of the fountain of life, that's terrible news. And does that mean that the important task of breeding their clan It's now on Tian. The fox asked them why they were all looking at Tian. Do they want to give him all the tasks of procreation? The entire elven tribe is pinning their hopes on him alone. Do they want to drive him to death? The queen replied that elves are so white-skinned, cute, and adorable. Tian can't let them disappear, right? And how about staying in the elf village to live permanently? Tian asked with surprise. Live here permanently? But he is very busy. The fox also said right. Tian has an important mission on him. He can't stay here forever and help them create little elves. Besides, it would wear out his body. Aurora said she was sorry and asked if he really couldn't stay. But the queen said that her destiny with Tian must not end here. She, the queen, had already thought of a name for their child, and maybe he has a way to revitalize the source of life. The queen was surprised and asked, what kind of a way is that? Will the two of them bathe in the source of life and work on improving themselves together and use the powerful energy the two of them will release into the life source to revive it? Tian said it's not what she thinks it is. He needs to perform a traditional and ancient ritual. This ritual needs to be done in a top-secret environment, and he asked them to go back to the elf village and wait patiently. Under no circumstances is there to be peeking. After they left, Tian thought that because of the influence of the spiritual core, the great sun life source had spread its grace, and from that, the elves appeared. Yet they do not know all cause and effect. But in gratitude for the gift of life, the elves worshipped and guarded the spiritual core of the great sun for 5,000 years. Though he has only taken what is already his, he can't just watch their kind die out. The queen hid behind a tree and thought, what is this ritual that is shrouded in such mystery? She, as queen, must find out the truth. The fox was also watching and thinking, what was the way to revive the life source? Besides, would she really have to return that spiritual artifact? Didn't Tian say that no one should peek? So, why did she come to peep anyway? The fox replied that she was doing the same thing. After all, the queen accepted and said she would not argue with her. But she must keep it a secret that they were peeping at Tian. The fox replied that it was a matter of course. Suddenly the queen was surprised and looked at it with surprised eyes, and saw Tian throw away his clothes. The queen said that Tian stripped naked. What kind of ceremony is it that needs to be conducted like this? Tian used his strength and released a red dragon that looked very angry and dangerous. The queen was surprised to see a big black dragon and thought that this was too much. Tian had really summoned this huge beast, and this thing has such a strong body. It can't help but respect it. The fox also looked on in amazement and saw that he was huge. It has life boiling in it. And as soon as she saw it, Tian is gradually transferring his power to the black dragon. It is a force to be reckoned with. It wouldn't be long before the black dragon would explode with Zhong's energy and complete the ritual. The queen watched and looked forward to it. The dragon suddenly opened its mouth and directed energy straight into the water. Someone shouted that the source of life was too big. It's just unbelievable. The queen also saw that there was too much water. She'll get soaked to the skin being at a distance. And it was no longer a spring, but a raging flood. The fox, too, has seen that the current is so powerful and invigorating that it's easy to get wet. And she can feel the life flowing in the place. Tian strode through the water and said it's done. Their life source has been restored. But the blessing must last for a certain amount of time. And if it takes too long, it may not work. When the time comes, all he needs is another ritual. The queen replied that yes. He is the reason the elves survived the disaster. He is the savior of the elves. The fox saw that it was not just the savior. It was their creator. Tian said for them to forget about it for a while. And he seems to remember what he said. No one is allowed to watch the ritual. And the most important thing about this ritual is privacy. If he is disturbed, he will have a difficult awakening. The fox started apologizing and saying that she was just peeking because she was worried. She didn't realize that this could be a big mistake. And if he was angry with her, he could punish her. But suddenly the queen comes out and says she's the one who started all this spying. The fox is innocent. If he wants to punish her, and his black dragon was so cool, maybe he'll summon it again to punish the queen. She has sinned so badly that she must be punished severely. He must not pity her. The queen told Tian again to punish her harder. She would endure anything. The boy replied that he understood. Tian said that there were too many elves in the looking glass of 1,000 autumns. She didn't have enough? And it seems her fifth point is too fond of adventure. And he thought it was time to teach her a lesson, so she would learn it. He swung his hand at her at once. That's how he defeated her. She didn't listen, and she deserved to be punished. After the cruel punishment, night came. Tian asked her, how was she doing? Was that enough punishment? It is enough this time, isn't it? The queen replied that it was cruel. The queen will obey June. She will agree to be trained by him. The fox told him that if he wanted to punish the queen, let him punish her properly. Why did she get crushed? She can't even stand up. Tian apologized and said that he was just too caught up in the game. It was a moment of passion. Tian realized that there was a time when he didn't seem so sensitive. But that was no longer the case now. It was thanks to the giant sun spirit. And in such a number of the giant sun spirit in him, there are 7 more Yuan Shin fragments scattered everywhere. He and Little Fox, they should also hurry up to set off. The queen asks the boy, he won't leave her here, will he? She knows that keeping him here in the elven village is impossible, but she just wants to be with him. She is unhappy in her position as queen of the elves. She wants to go outside the village and see the outside world with him. Maybe he will take her with him. Tian could see that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. She really wants to go with him. He said that now that she has made up her mind, then she can go with him. The fox asked, if she leaves, what will happen to the village? Without the queen, will the village be left without a leader? The queen replied that they didn't need to worry about that. The candidate who will take her place as queen, it is Princess Aurora, who is not only good-hearted, but also responsible and trusted by her people. Aurora is definitely worthy of the title of Queen of the Elves. But in the dark forest, there was one of the strong monsters. The head met him and said that he was showing his strength, and he couldn't even believe that there was a newcomer like him in the demon clan. What was the occasion for which he had come to him? Did he want to offer his soul to become one of the king's men? The monster asked with surprise, being his subordinate. He understood it the other way around. He is here to make him obey him, that it's nonchalant. Does he even know who is standing in front of him? How dare he say such a thing here? The head said that he is the 8th strongest monster in the world. He is the king of the undead, the lord of death. The monster replied that he knew, and if he were not so powerful, he would not have done it himself. Let him worship him, and he shall live. The head told the guy that he didn't understand the situation, and let him look at the bones under his feet. It was guys just like him trying to challenge him. Whether it was a beast or a demon challenging him, and he'd get what he deserved. All these bones, they're the bones of the dead, and he wouldn't be an exception either. And the head used his powers and raised the bones of the monsters. The head turned to the skeleton warriors and ordered them to destroy this fellow upstart. All the monsters jumped on him and tried to run him over. But this guy's energy was shining brighter and brighter. Suddenly after that, there was a large explosion, and all the bone warrior monsters were defeated. The guy said this shit is just a lot of shit. He didn't come here to crush these skeleton soldiers. He has come to conquer him, the Skeleton King. If he does not give him his full strength, he will lose the right to obey him. The head told the guy it was his own fault. Then he would do it for him. And by lifting all the skull showed that he had been doing it for centuries. And these bones are not just the bones of fallen and Jacqueline warriors, and a source of strength for him. Let him watch carefully. It's his highest form. And how does he feel now, seeing him like this? And looking around, he asked the guy, did he still run away? The monster replied, a tainted weapon, the Pearl of Death. It is here. The king asked, what is the Pearl of Death? Suddenly, the monster king fell to his knees and said that his body was out of control. The monster replied that Tesseract is a demonic dominator. He can dominate the bodies and minds of all demons. All would bow at his feet, and even human beings with demonic minds.